On his debut, Jarno Opmeer wins at Spa.
It's Martinez in Montreal. David beats Goliath.
It's a true underdog story. John Evans wins at Mexico.
And it's Super Sam Corby who takes the PlayStation Championship.
FRA Ronhard takes his first WOR Championship. He is your Xbox champion.
And Jake Benham is a two-time WOR champion.
Stop it! Around the outside operation! Line shadow is contacted again. Ronhard is around.
Melanie, surely is going to win here at Abu Dhabi. He does!
16 races across 5 continents. From Brazil to Belgium and Bahrain to Britain. Soon this story starts. Across 3 platforms, hundreds will begin the quest. The quest in search of glory and the right to be called a WOR champion. Lights out, and we're racing in Season 12. Welcome along everyone, it's WOR. We've had a 2-week break, but we are back and ready for some action. It's round number 6 of the season and we are heading to Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. And I'm delighted, I'm joined by a special guest tonight. I've got Lucas Blakely, F1 esports driver, alongside me in the commentary box. Lucas, welcome to commentary. This must feel strange for you. You're not driving, you're commentating, you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm as good about talking about racing as I am maybe actually doing it. But yeah, what a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. It's gonna be good fun. It's gonna be interesting, and I mean, yeah, what a track to have your first first commentary on. Canada always throws up a bit of a mix. It's a challenging circuit, plenty of obstacles for the drivers to overcome, both in qualifying and the race, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great fun. It is a really exciting circuit. I mean, in real life Formula 1, it's one that they always look forward to on the calendar. What about on the game, Lucas? I mean, it's great to have someone of your expertise with us in commentary tonight, a top driver. What's it like to drive? Is it a track you enjoy driving? Is it a track the drivers on esports tend to enjoy driving? Or is it a bit more of a frustrating track? How do you see it?
I think it's a bit of everything, to be honest. Canada's a very risk and reward type of circuit. You can, if you really put it on the line and you get every single chicane, corner, braking zone, traction, if you get all of these things nailed, it's worth more than at other tracks. I mean, take the final chicane, for example. It's always, when you're on that qualifying lap coming towards the end of Q1, 2 or 3, you know, it's all on the line, the pressure's on. And then, you know, it's very, very easy to either stack it in the wall, get it wrong, or take an invalidation over the curbs. And that's just one chicane. There's actually multiple on this lap you can get it wrong. It's definitely one that gets the stress going as a driver, especially in the qualifying. And then in the race itself, I believe with track limits, it's always a problem around here. You definitely see quite a few penalties pop up around this track, and keeping it clean is probably worth more here than, say, a track like Silverstone where it's wide open. You can maybe push the field of play a bit more. If you keep it clean round here, you're on for probably quite a good result. So, you know, it's got to keep your head in the game and keep yourself switched on. Make sure you don't do anything silly to throw yourself out of contention before you even get underway.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you, what's it like from a corner cut point of view? Because I did feel, I mean, I'm not by no means a great driver, but it's certainly a track I pick up a lot of penalties on. What's that down to? Is it because it's quite high speed, the chicanes, that you arrive at, and it's very easy to make one error and then jump across and end up with a few invalidations? Is that what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, every single one of these areas, they're not really slow, as you say. They're very high commitment, and it's all single input on the steering. You can't just sort of like take multiple stabs. You need to be committed and very, very accurate in every input you make, not just the steering, you know, the amount of throttle and brake you use. And it's a very fine line between getting it cut and, you know, just going that literally few centimeters too far over, and then all of a sudden your lap is invalidated. I mean, the way it's with the way it is on the F1 game, it's very you have to cut quite a lot over the curb. You can be very aggressive. It's quite generous with how much curbing you can get away with, which is why it can, throw you off guard, throw the car out of balance. And it's all under change of direction as well. It's there's a lot of factors to consider. Even in sector 1 with the elevation downhill with a right-left chicane. And there's always, with it being a street circuit, a wall on the outside ready to throw you, throw your front wing off your car if you get it wrong. So it's, it's definitely a challenge, and it's, as I said, I think earlier, it's pretty stressful to get it all right. But when you get it right, it's actually really satisfying.
Well, we'll jump into qualifying in a few moments' time and we'll see if the drivers can hook up a lap. But before we do, let's have a little look at the driver standings going into this. It's Nicholas Longe on top at the minute with 75 points. He's 20 points clear of Alvaro Carreton, who missed out on the victory a couple of weeks ago in Zandvoort as Barry Burneman hunted him down and passed him, with Alvaro Carreton really struggling with fuel issues. Shinaka Clay in 41, Thomas Ronha is fourth in the standings with 41 as well. Barry Burneman, as we touched on moments ago, on 37. Jake Benham, Tomek Baradzis, Danny Beresney, Sam Corby and Josh Adowu rounding out the championship standings. But just looking at them then, there's a really stacked grid. There's a lot of talent there, Lucas. A lot of drivers up and coming and a lot of established esports drivers in there. Who would you say is up and coming and looking very strong for the future of esports?
You have to put me on the spot with that one. It's certainly not a simple question to answer, but I think just looking up and down the grid, I mean, we are lucky to have, so many talented people and individuals involved. Not just, as you say, from maybe the F1 esports scene, but up and coming people who are in the Challenger series. We've got people from not just the PC side that we're racing on tonight. We've also got some people from I believe PlayStation and maybe even Xbox as well, if I've got that right. But it's I think it's always cool with league racing. It's something you don't often see, maybe even in the official series, where you have a mix of, the seasoned pros and the up-and-coming, youthful talent, and, being on the same track at the same time. And it's definitely a great thing for us to be able to watch and commentate on. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets it right, because Canada's quite a high-pressure circuit to get nailed. So, let's see how they all fare.
Yeah, well, the cars are now out there on the racetrack, as you can see, folks. 13 and a half minutes to go. You've not missed anything in the opening 3 or 4 minutes. They were all sitting in the garage waiting to get ready to do a lap. And out there right now is Louis Welsh, and he's coming to the end of a lap, a 1 minute 9.605, and he's the first man on the board on the medium tyre. A few drivers out there on inters as well, Luke Smith, and the reason for that, of course, is to try and save an extra set of tyres for later on in the session and perhaps going into the race as well. So Louis Welsh on top at the minute on the medium tyre. And just, Lucas, a thought on Louis Welsh from you. I mean, a pad driver to race at this level, you must have so much respect for that. That's incredible to be racing at this pace on a pad, isn't it?
Put it this way. Recently I've not had a sim rig and I've had to use the controller, and my lord, I cannot understand how he is so quick on this pesky little controller. It is so unbelievably difficult, especially at a track like this, because there's so much direction change, and then trying to get the exact the timing right with the input of the steering. It's so hard, and I don't actually understand how he's so good with it. So massive respect from, especially, as you say, to be at this level, fighting out with some of the best drivers on the game, full stop. So major credit to him. I think I nickname him the Pad Goat or the Pad Man or something like that, because he is literally, I think he's currently probably the best pad driver there is. It's very it's incredible to see what he actually can do on a pad. So great to have him racing against all the other wheel merchants like myself.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is how he does it, Louis Welsh. It just shows you, though, that you can really just pick up a pad and play, and you can compete against the very, very best. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds to compete. And Louis Welsh just picks up his pad, plays, and takes on some of the best out there. So fair play to Louis Welsh, as he is the current man at the top of the time. He's the only man with a representative time so far, that 1 minute 9.6. Only 3 drivers out there on the track at the minute: Louis Welsh, Sam Corby, his teammate, and only 2 drivers now, because I think Tom Martinez has just gone into the pits, or Jeffrey Ritchie it might have been, not too sure. But out there on the track at the minute, just Sam and Louis. But it looks quite overcast, doesn't it, Lucas? So I wonder if we'll see a little bit of rain in this session, perhaps. It certainly looks like menacing skies overhead as Louis Welsh comes towards the end of another lap. Let's see what he can do this time. 1 minute 9.6 to beat. Here he goes again, and this time he will go quicker by half a second. 1 minute 9.1.
Yeah, so a bit of an improvement there from the bad man, as I've nicknamed him now. That's going to stick, that's it done. And yeah, quite a big improvement actually for that matter. On the medium tyres, the harder compound used often either in the early stage of Q1 or actually coming towards the end of Q2 if people are opting for that strategy. You are able, due to it being a bit more durable than the softer compound, such as the soft, you are able to do multiple attempts at it as long as the tyre can hold up, you're not overheating it, which around a track like Canada, it is massively traction limited, very rear limited. You're waiting and dependent on the rear end for most of this lap to gain your lap time. And that's actually a very big factor as he just goes a little bit wide actually, kissing the wall on his latest attempt, coming at the hairpin, which is easier said than done. When you think you've got the car all straightened up and then you just get that little bit of understeer with the tyres starting to give up a little bit coming towards the end of the lap and he heads into the pits. Bailing out of that attempt, so obviously not an improvement. But yeah, traction is very key around this track, and that is actually more of a prominent thing in the race. You're going to see a lot of rear tyre degradation, which makes things quite tricky on this track when it's already hard enough to do in qualifying, and then all of a sudden your tyres are gone.
Just a quick one on what you were saying about the tyre life, and you know, the delta obviously gets worse as you do multiple laps. On the medium tyre then, as we saw from Louis Welch there, how many tenths would you lose on a second run? Would you maybe lose a tenth, as much as that? And how much would you lose on the soft if you try to do a second run around a track like this? I mean, is it quite significant, or on the medium is it really close that you can do 2 laps, as you say?
I think as long as the tyres aren't going to overheat, and depending how much they wear per lap, because every circuit has its differences, but to put it simply, as long as the tyres aren't overheating and you know you're comfortable with how much wear you're putting on them, you can go 2 times. And it's not just the tyres you need to consider, you also need to consider the ERS, you know, because you're going to use, you know, quite a bit every lap. But around a track like Canada, there's a lot of heavy braking zones. In fact, I think it's actually in real F1 one of the heaviest braking zones, the track with the most heavy braking zones potentially in the whole calendar, one of them at least. So you actually regenerate due to that quite a lot of ERS through the laps, so that can offer the opportunity to do more laps because you're not spending, you know, too much during one lap, so that you can then do it again for a second lap. So there's a lot of tiny details that you have to consider when, even though it's just a simple case of going for either 1 or 2 laps. But every little detail, I can tell you one thing, makes the biggest difference. It's all on the tiny margins, and that is that's what's going to make, you know, the person come 1st or 10th. That's the margins that we have in these leagues because the level's just phenomenal.
Yeah, incredible insight. Great to hear from you. I mean, there's so many variables, as you say, whether it's ERS, whether it's the temperature of the tyres, if you can keep them in the window. I mean, there's just so much to it, and yeah, it's great to have that kind of insight. It's Tom Martinez has gone 2nd quickest with a 1 minute 9.3, and it looks like he's pushing and going to go for another lap. But we'll go to Shanaka Clay, who has been featuring towards the front, whether it be in WOR or in PSGL in recent weeks. He's been very strong so far in 2022 as he makes his way now down the back straight, along past the river on the left-hand side, and now down towards the end of the lap, and he'll throw it into that final chicane where the Wall of Champions sits on the exit. Shanaka Clay sends it in there now, bouncing over the curves right up against the barrier as Ruben Pedreño goes quickest. Can Shanaka Clay displace him? No, he can't. He's just a fraction slower, 100th down on Ruben Pedreño, and goes 2nd quickest. But finally, we're getting some activity out there on the racetrack with some of the heavy hitters out there. Nicholas Longue's coming up to the line. Is he on a quick lap? He certainly is. It's enough to go quickest of all for the championship leader, a 108.1. What do you think we'll see, Lucas, in terms of a cut-off for this first part of qualifying?
It could be quite varied because a track like Canada, as I said, I think maybe earlier on, it's so dependent on track limits. So what you'll see is maybe with a few minutes left in the session, people with lap times that are actually quite a few tenths away because they haven't been able to improve on their early runs, maybe because they've invalidated. Invalidations are going to play a huge part in this qualifying session throughout not just Q1 but Q2 and Q3. You know, if you invalidate, you know, the run that's going to either get you through or improve your position to pole position, you know, then that's going to be very costly. It's why it's such a difficult track and why it's one that the drivers can often see as a thorn in the side. So the cutoff, I mean, we've got a 108.1 by Nicholas Longa at the moment, followed by John Evans, just under a tenth back. And then we've got a few cars within the 0.3. So not everyone's set a lap as it stands, but we might see a cutoff that's actually quite a few tenths away from the pole lap because, as I say, the way it varies with people not necessarily getting, you know, perfect laps every time that you would say at a track like potentially Silverstone, where it's not so much about invalidations but more about, you know, perfecting your lines, getting this tiny details right. Canada's a bit more about being confident, being comfortable within yourself, knowing where to place the car, and not, you know, guessing what's about to happen, but knowing what's about to happen. You know, that's where all the preparation into these races, you know, will pay off with it, whether it's getting the setup in the right place or just knowing every last little extremity off the track. So we'll see what that sort of turns out to be once the cut-offs are obvious. I mean, we're getting more lap times on the board now, actually, as I say that, with a lot of people now boxing down into 0.4s, 0.5s, 0.6s. So yeah, it's interesting. Quite a varied amount of lap times up and down the board.
Yep, plenty of lap times coming in, but yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, it might be a short track. It might be, you know, like Austria, very tight in terms of times. But of course, the issue, as you say, is it can be really unforgiving on track limits. So if you don't set a competitive lap, as you say, it might result in there being quite a spread in the times towards the bottom. So we'll have to wait and see. But it certainly looks like it's really close for those drivers that have got a lap in. Here is Tom Martinez then, making his way over the start-finish line then. He did win here, famously, last year, overtaking Jake Benham in the wet conditions to win in WOR. One of the greatest victories, the biggest shocks in WOR history. Here he is then, trying to get himself into the second part of qualifying. It's been a battle throughout the season to do so. As John Evans retires, he's obviously happy that that 1 minute 8.2 will see him through into the next part of qualifying. But Tom Martinez has already invalidated this lap. And there you go. It just shows how unforgiving this track can be. And there you go. He's only done a 109.3 so far. No representative time. And as you touched on, Lucas, that could be why the cutoff could be so varied.
Yeah, the good thing for Tom Martinez, though, is he will have enough fuel and enough battery and tyres to go for another lap with 3 minutes remaining on the clock. Actually, well, I mean, a bit more than that, actually. Every second counts. But, yeah, I mean, at the moment, we still have 4 cars without a time. So it's very difficult to even just get a lap on the board because you want to push harder. Your natural instincts are screaming at you, just take that extra little bit. But you need to sort of hold yourself back. Put a time on the board, chip away at it, try and be methodical, but ultimately, if you've got no lap time on the board and you are coming now towards the end of the session where you have one shot to do it, that's when the pressure all arrives at you at once and you've really got to hold your nerve, and that is probably one of the hardest things to do in competitive F1 league racing or racing in general. It's, you don't want to put yourself in that position, but if you do find yourself in that position, you've just got to try and, you know, clutch up. Because, you know, that's what can make the bigger differences between getting through and going in pole position. It can be like that. As Tom Martinez, big oversteer coming towards the middle sector of the lap. I think he's going to bail out of that. Yes, he has. Yeah. So, again, still got time on the board, but he's now probably, I can just look at his fuel. He's got 1.8 laps, so he's got enough fuel, but he's going to have one more shot. So Tom Martinez, as I was just saying, now this is it for him. He has one more attempt to get through. So it's now about tidying up the lap, putting together what you can, not making mistakes, and whether it's enough to go through or not, that will be what it will be. So coming down to the crunch time of the session.
Yeah, it sure is. And as you touched on, Tom Martinez under pressure now. He doesn't have that reference either, and I suppose that's the other thing, the delta time, the reference against your previous lap. He does have a 193, but it's not very representative. Here's Thomas Ronhard, though, in the final sector. He really does need a big lap time here. He's coming up to the line. Can he get himself through? He should do with that. He goes 6th quickest on a 108. 1.4. So let's see if that will be enough for him to get to. We're still waiting on lap times from Laverty, McCluskey and Liam Parnell. Are any of them out there on a lap at the minute? Let's have a look. Primoz McCluskey is, and he's gone for a spin, and that is going to ruin his lap and might ruin a few others as he goes through there. I wonder if he'll time to get round to go again. Jack Laverty, meanwhile, is going out there again. He is 18.8 through the first sector as he tries to get himself out of the bottom 5. Sam Corby's invalidated his latest run, so he's in trouble. Tom Martinez going again, and this time round finding 2/10 up through the first sector. What's it looking like through the middle sector for Martinez as he looks to get himself through? A further 6/10 up on his previous best. Will it be enough to see him into the next part of qualifying? At the minute, he's going to be around that time of Louis Welsh in amongst Jack West. Let's see what he can do as he now winds his way up down that back straight. Might even get a little toe from Ruben Pedreño. He will, and here he goes up towards the final corner. Tom Martinez currently in the bottom 5. Can he find a way out of that bottom 5 as he goes right up against the barrier? Martinez for the line. Is he through? Yes, he is. It's a super lap. He goes 8th quickest. What a time from him as Laverty goes 2nd. Wow, what an improvement to the racetrack right at the end of qualifying. McCluskey is bailed out. Corby is on one. We'll watch him in a minute. Liam Parnell is also out there, but what an end to the session this is.
Yeah, great effort from Laverty and Tom Martinez coming towards the end of that. That was, I didn't know they put it in the wall going towards the final sector, but also the spin from the Williams would have been a pain for multiple drivers because the yellow flags would have came out at the worst possible time for them coming towards the chicane. That's an extra distraction the drivers would not have wanted. I think Joost Noordijk would have got a little bit distracted as he was the car directly behind.
Here comes Poland for the line. Can he get through? Oh, he goes 15th. He's on the bubble. Can he be beaten by Corby? He can. Sam Corby goes 13th. Knocks Poland out, having just gone through. He's in trouble. We still have Liam Parnell, who's still not done a time. Can he knock Jeffrey Ritchie out of qualifying? He can. He goes P12. Ritchie is out. Noordijk improves at the death. Is McCluskey on a lap? I think he might be right at the very end. So can Primoz McCluskey get himself through and knock Sam Corby back out of qualifying? It's oh so tight in the order at the minute. McCluskey with just the final chicane to go. Can he do anything about knocking Sam Corby out? It's going to be oh so close. He'll take the shortest route to the line. Is he through? Just gets through. P15. Wow, Lucas, it doesn't get much closer than that.
200ths of a second. That is the fine margins. Well recovered from McCluskey towards the end of that. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, I'm sitting here laughing because I just can't believe how hectic it actually was towards the end of the session. I mean, good recovery from going from spin into Q2. That's well held, but actually very tight actually. When you look at P10 to P15, separated by barely over a 10th. And then even if you're P16, P17, it's just a matter of hundreds. Canada being quite a short track as well in terms of overall lap time. So you do see these sort of tight margins. But to be honest, a bit tighter than I expected. So credit to all of the guys out there.
Yeah, incredible end to the session. Very tight. But it's Nicholas Longuet that is on top in qualifying 1. 2 more sessions to come in a moment. Jack Laverty, what an improvement right at the very end to pop up into 2nd place with John Evans 3rd and Luke Smith in 4th. It was the 2 Spaniards in 5th and 6th with Caraton and Pedreño, Shanaka Clay, Leroy Brown, Iker Banea, and then it was Thomas Ronhart completing the top 10. Tom Martinez gets himself through into Q2. He'll try and repeat that victory from last season. Joost Noordijk, Liam Parnell, Thomas Harvey and McCluskey at the death. Going out, it's Sam Corby, it's Jeffrey Ritchie, Jordan Poland, Jack West and the Padman. Unfortunately, on this occasion, it was a step too far. He drops out in the first part of qualifying. But Lucas, let's have a chat about that. It was very close. Really enjoyed that end to the session. And it was changing all the time at the bottom, but just shows you how tight it can be. Literally nothing in it down to get into the top 15.
Yeah, I mean, it was separated by little to nothing between some of those positions. And I mean, those margins are so close that, you know, one tiny lockup, one tiny mistake into any one of these corners. I mean, they're all pretty hard around Canada. It's not the easiest track to do in qualifying, but yeah, fair play to everyone for holding their nerve. And yeah, it was just unbelievably close. I mean, that did surprise me. The cutoff was, I think, maybe around the 4/10 mark away from the fastest time, so it was a rather higher cut, but it was all very close. And I think I'll actually say, I mean, quite a strong effort from Nicholas Longay, just straight out the bat, first lap time done in the pit, save a set of tyres. Quite a few people up the top did that as well. I think John Evans also retired partway through the session. Maybe Shanaka Clay as well, saving a set of tyres. So, I mean, these small, I say small differences, but if you're able to save a set of tyres, that will pay dividends around a track that is largely confidence-based, such as Canada. I mean, it's just all confidence, it's all momentum. If you start validating and start getting panicky, start getting in your own head, you can be your own worst enemy around here. It's not an easy feat to put it together around this track.
Yeah, well, let's jump into Q2 then and have a look at some of the drivers, because unlike in Q1, they're going out there very, very quickly. So let's pick them up now and jump in to qualifying 2. And as you touched on, straight off the bat, Nicholas Longay was quick. Let's see if he can do it again at the start of qualifying 2. But yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, Lucas. You know, you really need to try and build yourself up. It's like a street track, like Monaco in that sense. So do you feel like you just need to build your way up, and then, you know, you've got that benefit of the delta, the comfort of the delta in the top right-hand corner of the screen? Do you see that delta as a real help to you as a driver? You know, if you go and do a steady lap, and then you know where you're quicker or slower, and you can just build up from there. Is the delta really key to that?
When it comes to the delta, literally every single driver's different. It's actually quite interesting. Some drivers really like the delta. They like to use the delta as a reference to give themselves that, as you say, comfort, whether it be comfort, motivation, that extra little bit of, you know, whether they need to push that just a little bit harder. From my own personal experience, I've actually done it both ways. I've ran without a delta, I've ran with a delta. It's a different mentality running it both ways. Sometimes looking at a delta too much can maybe add a little bit of extra pressure to the driver when it doesn't need to be. It's a double-edged sword. It can be motivating and panicking. So, but I think the delta can be a very useful tool if used correctly, because you can tell exactly where your lap time is going to end up, knowing whether you're going to have to bail out a lap, whether it feels good or is actually good. It's a very important tool to use, I reckon, at this level. But I do know some drivers don't use it, so there is no correct answer in reality. You can or cannot use it, but at the end of the day, the timesheet doesn't lie.
Yep, absolutely. Nicholas Longay, unfortunately, this time round, has not been able to go around off the bat and do the lap. He's managed to invalidate, which of course you said is very easy to do around here, so it's not worked out for him. Shanaka Clay, though, is just behind him on the road, is on a quick lap, so let's see what he can do to open his account for qualifying 2. It looks like the majority of the drivers are going for the soft compound. I'll get your thoughts on that one in a moment's time. Of course, remember, if you've just joined us, folks, or if you're new to this, the drivers in the top 10 must start with the tyre they qualified on from Q2. Shanaka Clay comes up to the line and he's bailed out and does a 108.8. So does that say he prefers the medium tyre then? Your thoughts on that, Lucas?
I think it does. The same for Ruben Pedreño, 109.0, both have been significantly slower than the times we saw in Q1. Again, John Evans, 109.2. Then Liam Parnell actually setting a lap on the mediums, 108.9. But Luke Smith committing to the soft tyre potentially, 108.3. Now top of the board on the soft compound, and I do believe that was actually one of the things that was on the tip of my tongue. I don't know what the strategy is going to be. Are people going to commit to mediums early in the session, or such as Liam Parnell, who's on set a time on the mediums, Joost Nordijk, who's on the mediums at the moment as well, I believe, on track. But are people like Shanaka Clay, like John Evans, Ruben Pedreño, are they setting delta laps to literally give themselves a time on a used set of softs or whatever it may be, and then waiting to the end of the session when the track is at its peak grip to offer the best sort of lap time, and then they slap a set of mediums on? And a key strategic element to this is it can almost be like a pack mentality, because if everybody goes mediums, then, you know, it means that if everyone's on the top 10 in mediums, it makes it worse for the soft tyres, the soft qualifiers, sorry. So it's sometimes you have everybody going for mediums, then one person goes softs, and then all of a sudden everyone's on softs. It's almost like a game of high-speed chess in the pit lane as well. You've got to sort of strategically pick your tyre compound, but we do have a few times that are probably, I would say, representative for the soft. I'm not quite sure what the delta is between the soft and the medium, to be able to tell exactly what people are trying to commit to, but there are definitely times on that board, such as from Shanaka Clay, Ruben and John, that I think signify that they're going to go for the medium compound later in the session when the track ramps up.
Yeah, well, certainly when we saw Shanaka Clay bail clean out of it, it did look like he didn't fancy that. And you're absolutely right, it is a game of cat and mouse, high-speed chess. Everyone goes out on one set of tyre, and then it makes everyone else want to go on the other set, and then they come across the line and they bail clean out of it. So it almost as if, do you think that they're trying to force some of the drivers' hands? So, for example, just to paint a picture, do you think maybe Shanaka Clay are going to try and force the hand of people onto softs, and maybe the likes of Luke Smith has perhaps failed for that and done a fast lap on the softs? Is that what they're trying to do, or is it just all about getting that delta time? Is that what you think it might be?
I think the largest part would maybe be the delta time, but you just never know because everyone's got their own idea, their own approach. Maybe they are on softs to try and make everybody commit to softs super early on into the session, and then they realise, oh wait, they didn't complete the lap. Now I've set a fast lap, and great, I'm into Q3, but everyone around me in Q3 is going to be starting on the medium tyre. You do see it in different tracks. I mean, I've seen it happen in France before in a league race where literally everybody committed to mediums in Q2, like there was almost no soft runners. Sometimes that happens. And Jos Nordyk, who is, I think, now just boxing off of the mediums, so some people might be using mediums actually as an early set of tyres, and then jumping on the softs at the end. So there's so many strategic elements going on. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on everybody as to see what they do. Nicholas Longy on an outlap on the soft tyres. Now, this will be one of two things: an actual lap or a delta lap. It can only be one of those two things, actually. Jack Laverty now taking the top time on a set of softs, so he's committing potentially to that strategy.
Yeah, certainly looks,
Yeah,
it certainly looks like Laverty and Smith have committed to it. Ronhard on that 108.5 is kind of in, almost like in no man's land, in the middle of the road between the two tyres. We'll have to wait and see what some of these guys can do when they stick a set of medium tyres on, but certainly very interesting to see Nicholas Longy out there on a set of soft tyres. So let's see how he gets on. He is now on that push lap, so let's see how this lap is lined up. Will he in the end bail out at the completion of it like we saw from Shanaka Clay and the like? We'll wait and see. He's done an 18.9 through the first sector, so Nicholas Longy, who was on top in Q1, is on top in the driver's standings, looking to push very hard, getting right up against the barrier there as he exited that first sector and now into sector 2 and into the next sequence. Looked like I was picking up a bit of understeer there, but just about keeps it within the white lines. And how's that second sector looking? It is a 40.2 for Nicholas Longy as he now makes his way into the extremely tight hairpin, and then it's all about traction out of here. Longy now towards the end of the lap. Let's have a look at it. What do you think he's going to do? Go on, Lucas, give us a prediction. Is he going to complete it?
I'm going to say he bails out it, but I could be wrong. I'm quite off and on sometimes, but we'll see. Coming towards the final chicane, slamming onto the brakes, fifth gear, committing hard to the entry curve, nice and clean, not hitting the wall on the exit, unlike how he did at the start of the lap. Is he going to lift? It doesn't look like he is. No, he's not. But he's invalidated. Maybe intentionally, he invalidated the lap. Because there was a moment, coming towards the right-left chicane before the sector 3 split, where he was quite wide on the left-hander on the transition, which I maybe thought was invalidated, but interesting to see. I mean, I did think I was going to be wrong there for a moment, but he definitely didn't back out, but he did set the lap. So Nicholas Longy probably looking to go for the medium tyres, but equally in itself, that is a strategic element as Ruben Pedreño now takes the fastest lap with a 108.147 on the soft tyres. It's going to be interesting because everyone on the medium tyres is going to have one shot. It's effectively a one-shot qualifying for these guys, albeit with maybe a few attempts if they have to back out with the way the timing works, but they've only got one real go at these tyres. They can't throw on a new set. You only have one set of mediums, so let's see how that works out for everybody as the session progresses towards the end.
Shanaka Clay then puts in a representative time on the mediums then. Let's have a look at it. 108.5 from Shanaka Clay. So that's his representative effort on the mediums. Will that be enough to see him into the next part of qualifying? It remains to be seen. I guess a lot of it is going to be down to what the drivers around him choose to put on. Primož Miklavčič is out there on a set of softs, and it looks like he is going to complete this lap. He did just squeeze into the second part of qualifying, and he is now on the softs, and he is going to blast right up to the line. He is going to complete it. It's enough to go ahead of Shanaka Clay. It's a 108.4, and he is also committing to a set of soft tyres. So a number of drivers committing. John Evans is another driver out there on mediums. Let's see how his time will stack up against Shanaka Clay. And he's bailed out and he's coming into the pit lane. So his lap is over. Tom Martinez going hard again. He loves it round here. Victory last season. Can he get himself into the next part of qualifying? Not with a time like that. It is on mediums though, a 108.8. So he's happy with the medium compound as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how many strategic plays there are at the moment. Yeah, I don't know, I'm trying to piece together what's really going on at the moment, but what might actually happen is, well, I mean, in the top 10, as it stands right this second, there is, I think, maybe 8 people on the softs, maybe? Something around that, which is, it's going to be interesting because what might end up happening is people can just switch to the softs last minute and then effectively bully those on the medium straight back out, so they don't get the strategic advantage. So I think that time from Shanaka was pretty fair going, 108.5. A few hundreds up the road from P8, Agabena in the mediums as well, on the mediums as well, I should say. Liam Parnell with a 108.9. 40 people yet to put a representative lap on the board. We are in the lull now, Andy, before we have that final rush towards the end of the session. Most of the people on the pits, in the pits, I should say, before it all gets pretty hectic.
Very interesting to see Tom Martinez there. He was actually a tenth and a bit up on his second run on the medium tyre, but decided to come into the pits. So does that suggest to you that he might put on a set of softs? We'll have to wait and see, because he was certainly going quicker on that medium run the second time round, but he chose to bail out. Luke Smith then not in a quick lap at the minute. We've got out laps for John Evans and Nicholas Longate as well. Let's see what tyre they've chosen. So John Evans is out on the softs, Nicholas Longate out on the softs, so quite a lot of drivers electing to go softs now at the close of the session. So let's see what the majority choose to go for. Are we going to see a 3-minute shootout with everyone eventually finding their way onto the soft tyre? Perhaps we will. We'll have to wait and see.
I think what's maybe happening now is people are seeing the times on the mediums and then thinking that the cut-off isn't going to be good enough. I mean, I think people are now seeing a 0.5, maybe not good enough to go through to Q3. I mean, that was what the cut-off was on softs to get out of Q1, so I think people are playing it safe, making sure they get that grid position, because grid position is often so key in these races, because you end up having DRS trains where it becomes very difficult to make quick advances up and down the field. On board now with Nicholas Longay starting his lap.
Take us for a lap. Go for it.
Heavy braking into turn 1, down to 4th gear, probably down to 3rd for the transition to the right-hander. Short shift to 4th to dull that wheel spin on the exit, saving the distance now, coming towards this high-speed right-left chicane. Holding 6th gear, down to 5th, short shift to 6th on the way through the exit. Not quite hitting the wall, which is always ideal. Heavy braking now just past the 100 metres, using the curb on the inside. Short shifting to 5th. Right up out to the wall, but not quite in it this time, unlike his previous run. Let's see if he invalidates through this section. I think this is where he invalidated before, using all the road on the left, using all the roads on the curbing, not using the grass, but just a little bit of curb. Now for a very, very heavy braking zone. Such an understeer corner. The traffic ahead, so easy to get distracted by that sort of thing, because you can often run yourself in deep, almost chasing the car ahead when you see people getting out the way like that. Nothing wrong doing from Tom Martinez, but that's just often the perception that the driver can have when you're on a hot lap. But here it is now, all or nothing, heavy braking, 5th gear, oh, very wide on the entry, maybe killing a bit of speed, but it looks clean enough. But it's going to be a 108.1, so very, very similar to how he did. And John Evans immediately eclipsing that lap time by 0.004 of a second. And Ruben Pregenio is actually only a few, and Luke Smith, they're only a few hundreds apart, aren't they?
That is very, very close. It always is. And it's beginning to hot up here in qualifying, no doubt about it. And it's John Evans and Nicholas Longay have shot to the top of the order, and they now feel the soft tyre is the one to be on. Thomas Ronhar is out there pushing hard, bouncing off the barrier at the final corner. Has he scrubbed off any speed? No, he hasn't. It's enough to go and join the club in the 108.1s. There's now 5 drivers in the 108.1s at the minute in qualifying. It's also close. Liam Parnell goes across the line. He does a 108.2, and it is so close. We have now got the top 8 within just over a 1/10 of a second. That is astonishing stuff here in qualifying. Who else have we got out there on the lap? Canaton is on a warm-up one. What is Shanaka Clay doing? Oh, he's going very, very quickly on a set of softs. He's bent the mediums. He's going to the line. What can he do? He goes quickest. 108.0. Shanaka Clay should see himself through. What have you seen out there, Lucas?
I just saw Jack Laverty invalidate a lap that would have put him much further up the leaderboard. He just invalidated it in the final chicane. Just a bit too much curb on both of the right and the left. So, painful for Jack Laverty. The lap was enough to get through, or I mean, enough to go up the leaderboard. I can't remember the exact lap time, but now he's P9, quite vulnerable to people now going on more laps. We've got Ruben Virginio now to the fastest time. It just keeps coming down. The track just keeps ramping up and up and up. We will see. Oh, it's going to be so tight. That's the time done. So everyone that's on a lap. Oh, man.
Bena goes third into the 108.0s as well. It's really beginning to hot up now. Jack Laverty, as you said, not on a quick one. Liam Parnell going again. No, he's bailed out. There's a McLaren coming up to the line. Which one is it? It's Leroy Brown. He goes P15. He is out of qualifying. Alvaro Canaton, as you say, is on one. He's currently P9. He's just about on the bubble, but he stays P9. So that could be a vulnerable time for him. Joost Noordijk is out there on a lap, but it's not a particularly quick one. What about Shanaka Clay? He's coming into the pits, and Tom Martinez, the winner last time out, he is on a lap, but he has invalidated it, so his run is over too. I think that is the last of the laps, unless Thomas Harvey can go quickly. I don't think he will.
Tom Martinez, sorry to interrupt, just shunted coming out of the final chicane. I don't think he would have been able to improve on the lap, or at least enough to get into the top 10, but obviously not an ideal way to end the session. But at least he was given it full beans right until the end. Never sort of never say die attitude towards the end of the session. And I believe, Andy, that is everyone now done. So yeah. Oh, Jack Laverty, you lucky. That was a really close cut of your Jack Laverty. You'll be thanking the stars. He was on an improved lap. I was waiting to see what the delta was going to be coming to the line, because he was actually on for, I believe, in the moment that he was on the lap for the fastest lap, but then just took too much curb coming towards the end of the final, to the final chicane, the Wall of Champions, on the exit as well. It was just, fine margins.
Yeah, it's oh so close, and there you go then. Ruben Pedreño, Shanaka Clay, Ika Bena, all in the 108.0s. We've got a big group of cars in the 108.1s as well. 4 of them: John Evans, Nicholas Longy, Thomas Ronhar, Luke Smith, and then several down to the end of the bottom of the pile in the 108.2s. Also close once again in this part of qualifying. It's Ruben Pedreño though that went quickest of all, and as you say, Jack Laverty eking through into the next part of qualifying. What a session that was. Q3 is going to be very, very exciting. But there is your results from the second part of qualifying. Ruben Pedreño marches through with Shanaka Clay, Ika Bena, John Evans, Nicholas Longy, Thomas Ronhar, Luke Smith, Liam Parnell, Alvaro Canaton, and Jack Laverty. Just 2/10 covering the top 10 drivers. Then the ones that bow out: Joost Noordijk, 11th and out. Primoz Miklavzic just squeezed through in Q1. Couldn't do it in Q2. He's 12th and out. Thomas Harvey, Tom Martinez, the winner last season, and Leroy Brown will all take a seat and watch qualifying 3. But interestingly, Lucas, everyone opting for a set of soft tyres in the end, apart from Thomas Harvey, who qualified outside the top 10 anyway. But very interesting to see that. It was all a game of cat and mouse, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think people were just trying to play with the idea of mediums, but then as the session progressed, I think the cut-off was the cut-off was nowhere near what was required to get into Q3. But that goes back to what I was saying, that pack mentality. Everyone just decided to throw on that set of softs, meaning that if you want to go mediums, you're going to have to, go out to get on the mediums to start. So, yeah, we definitely saw that in full effect. And now we have the final 10. This is where those who have saved their tyres throughout the qualifying are going to reap the rewards if anyone's got 2 fresh sets instead of 1. So it's going to be interesting. The only real representation we're going to have is probably from the final runs, because everyone will then be absolutely on their brand new tyres. But until then, it's going to be a mix of brand new and used soft.
Well, here we go then. This is it. Qualifying 3, the business end of qualifying. This is where we see the best from everyone. As you say, Lucas, we'll have a mixture in that first run. Some, of course, will have saved an extra set. Some will just have the one shot at glory. 10 drivers, all going for pole position. One of my favourite parts of the league racing weekend is the qualifying session. Let's have a word with some of the people in the chat. Come on, tell us, who do you think is going to get pole position? Leave a comment down below and tell us who will get it. Lucas, what do you think the pole time will be? What's it going to be? What's going to be required to get pole? What would be a really special lap? What would really have you, you know, open-mouthed and wide-eyed?
I think we're going to see someone, or maybe multiple drivers, dip into the 107s, but we don't want to go too greedy on what our predictions are going to be, because around a track such as Canada, it is so easy to reach too high in terms of potential lap time. Often the pole time can be something that was maybe even just about as quick enough to go first in Q2. But if someone does hook up a lap, I do reckon we're going to see people into the 107s. But how far into the 107s, that I will leave up to these 10 really fast drivers.
Well, we'll wait and see then. Thomas Ronhaar has started a flying lap then. So what's he looking like for the first sector? It's an 18.906 through that first sector from Thomas Ronhaar. Not too sure if it's a used set or new set for him. We'll have to wait and see how the lap time shakes up. But Ronhaar out there at the minute, pushing hard in that McLaren car.
He hit the wall.
He clipped the wall there. Yeah, there's a little bit of that barrier that sticks out, doesn't it? Does that often put drivers off?
It's caught me out plenty of times over the years, put it that way. It's always been there for the last few games on F1, and just catching Thomas Ronhaar out. Whether he's picked up damage from that is yet to be seen. But yeah, it's always something you need to consider as you approach that chicane. It's so easy to get too greedy because your eyes are not focused on that wall. You're looking at the apex. So let's see how it ends for Thomas Ronhaar. Very committed to the chicane, using all the road in the exit. Is he going to run it up to the line now? What's the time going to be for Thomas Ronhaar? It's a 108.1, well recovered after slight contact with the ball.
Yeah, it's a really good start to the session, a really good reference point for Thomas Ronhaar to go attacking for that second run. He'll be very happy with that. Alvaro Canaton is on an outlap. Who have we got on a quick one? Ruben Pedreño on an outlap, Baena on an outlap too, Longue just starting one. Is there anyone else further round though? Currently on a quick one? I don't think so. So we'll stick with Nicholas Longue for the moment then. Keep an eye on that first sector. We saw a really good first sector from Ronhaar. Is it beaten by Longue? I think it was, just by a fraction. 100th Longue quicker than Ronhaar, and the championship leader has got the bit between his teeth, Lucas.
Yeah, here he goes, coming up to that point where Thomas Ronhaar clipped the wall, getting it nice and straight on the braking. Nice and smooth through the direction change. It's so easy. I cannot stress how easy it is to throw the car off balance on direction change. Holding 7th gear now for the entry to the hairpin. Third, then short at the front, but he gets a little bit of oversteer on the traction. Oh, now everything that's been done in the lap is done. At this point, all focus is on not throwing it all away in this little pesky little chicane that catches us all out so much. Lots of curb on the entry, not so much on the exit. Getting all out of shape towards the exit, but how's the lap time going to look? It's going to be a 1-0. Oh, not enough for P1. Maybe on the used tyres, but yet again, 108.167 for Nicholas Longue. I believe Alvaro Canaton now has just negotiated his way round the final sort of hairpin, coming towards the final sector as well now.
Yeah, Canaton and Baena, but with Baena first, so we'll keep an eye on him as he now attacks the final chicane, making his way into the final part of qualifying. Iker Baena to the line. What's it going to be from him? It's pole position for him. It's a 108.1. Can Canaton displace him on the road? No, he must have invalidated. He's only gone 7th. So what about...
He's going again.
That's a really good lap from him. John Evans, he's coming across the line, but it's just an outlap. Shanaka Clay, though, he's on a quick lap, but he's also invalidated that latest run. So it ain't working out for him. Luke Smith, though, he's going quickly. He's not going quickly enough, though. It's a 14.4. He must have made a mistake out there somewhere on that lap. So it has not worked out for him. Longue going again, though, but he's 6 seconds down, so he's not going quickly. Liam Parnell is, though, but he's also bailed out. So several drivers struggling, and you touched on this at the start of the session, way back when we got underway here. So easy to invalidate. Many drivers are now falling foul to that situation. Baena, though, on top. And is he going again on another quick lap? I think he might be, you know. So let's see what he can do. He is going for another lap now. That would be very special if he can go and do 2 successive laps and go even quicker. The surprise package of this session, no doubt about it, makes his way into the final chicane. Tidy as you like. Shortest run to the line. Can he go even faster? No, he can't. He can't. He's a 10th down. Did he bail out?
I don't know. I just heard the throttle come off coming towards the line. Maybe he was down on his delta and just decided to bail out early.
Pedreño for the line. What's he doing? He goes quickest of all. It's a Haas front row. 108.0 from Ruben Pedreño. Here comes Shinaka Clay. He's not in a quick lap though. He's had to bail out. What about Luke Smith? He crosses the line. He goes P5 on a 108.1. Dramatic end to the session. What a session it's becoming here. Ron Hart about to build up for one, but this is getting very interesting indeed. Liam Parnell going again. He's on a quick lap.
Yep, so Liam Parnell 2 seconds up on his current delta, but obviously his current lap time isn't 100% representative, so let's see how he negotiates this final chicane. We've already seen people being caught out. I think half of the field in Q3 actually had to go for a second stab at it, because it's just so easy to mess up your lap round here. But here comes Liam Parnell, 108.5 potentially on these used tyres. The thought though, Andy, is if we consider that people on the grid right now might actually be on used tyres, maybe they are, maybe they're not, we can't 100% tell, but if they are, what lap times are we going to see come towards the final runs? We're already on 8 flat. Are we going to see a 7.9? Are we going to see someone put in an absolute banger on a 7.8? We shall see. It's Canada, anything's possible.
Yep, and it's now calm before the final storm. Not one driver is out there at the minute on a particularly quick lap, but it's Ruben Pedreño though that's gone quickest of all at the minute on that 108.0, a fraction ahead of John Evans, who is showing some great form here tonight as well. Iker Bena as well in the top three. It's really going to be an interesting finale. We're still waiting on times from Caraton and Clay. Who's going to get this pole? Are we going to see anyone get into the sevens? Would a sevens clinch the pole? We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a dramatic close to this qualifying session. Are you going to make any predictions, Lucas? Are you going to come off the fence? Who do you fancy for pole? Go on, make a prediction.
I think there's about 5 drivers capable of it, but I must say, Ruben Pedreño been pretty strong in the past 2 sessions between Q2 and Q3 thus far. He would be definitely one to watch for this session. You can't obviously rule out the seasoned veterans such as, Caraton, Clay, Longue, these guys have obviously done it a lot, they know what they're doing, but I think there's so many people with the pace, it's really hard to pinpoint one particular driver, as we have Thomas Ronner, who is 0.18 up on his current lap. So, if I've done my maths correctly...
He's invalidated though, unfortunately, so Ron Hart showing he does have pace, but the invalidation means that it won't count for anything. Let's see if he tries to complete it to see what time he would have done. Probably not.
I don't think he'll complete it.
Yeah, he should come straight into the pits.
Yeah.
He does indeed. So it's all over for him. Longgate on an out lap. It's going to be very close. I'll tell you who I'm going to go for pole. I think... I'm going to go John Evans. I'm going to go John Evans for pole. That's who I'm going for. We'll have to wait and see if I'm right or wrong. I like to stick my neck on the line and have a punt. So I'm going to go for John Evans for pole. We'll see if I'm right.
Yeah, we've got 3 minutes left on the clock. We have Alvaro Caraton on his outlap burning fuel, because the minimum amount of fuel you're allowed to go out with is 5 kilograms, but often on a track like Canada, that is far too much. Like, that literally gives you multiple laps worth of fuel. So all the drivers now, if they leave the pits now, are going to have 2 attempts. They'll have 1 attempt, they'll have their first attempt, and if it's not good enough, then they have their second attempt, and that's it. With the time that they've got remaining, they have options to bail out of laps if they need to. But 2.5 minutes left on the clock. It's about to get intense, Andy.
Yep, here we go then. Buckle up, folks. Here we go. Nicholas Longue, the championship leader, is going to open up with his first proper lap at the end of qualifying then. Will he only have 1? Will he have 2? If he makes a mess of it, he will have time to go for another run. It's not ideal though, should he do that. Longue then pushing hard, sweeping down the hill, right then left, up against the barrier, and then into this long right-hander, blind on the way through, and then into the next corner, and it's an 18.8, half a tenth up on what he did the last time round through that first part of the lap. So Longue, the Frenchman, be slowly beginning to string together a really competitive and tidy lap. Is it going to be enough though to break into the 107s? Is it going to be enough to displace Ruben Pedreño as Longue gets right up against the barrier, touching the grass there. Middle sector, nearly a tenth up on his previous best, but still not on course to beat the time of Ruben Pedreño. So Longue needs to throw the kitchen sink at the final chicane if he wants to steal top spot from Ruben Pedreño. What can the Frenchman do as he now heads down that back straight? This is where we'll see much of the overtaking in the race. Will Longue need to do some overtaking? We'll find out as he now gets right up against the barrier, and that will surely have scrubbed off speed. Crosses the line now, but he still goes into the 9s. A 107.9. What a lap from Longue, and he's gone quickest of all. What a time that is.
How on earth did he gain that much time? 1 minute we didn't think he was going to be in pole. The next minute he's got it by a fair few hundreds. That all came in the final chicane, I think. Maybe he didn't have that good a chicane in this previous run, but wow, I did not expect that coming towards the line. Now, we have, I mean, while Nico was on his lap, there was quite a few people getting out of shape, so...
Here's his teammate, sorry. Here's Luke Smith coming to the line. What can he do? Can he displace Nicholas Longay at the top? He can! He can by half a tenth. Luke Smith goes quickest of all in qualifying. Everyone beating one another at the close of the session. Caraton up to the line, not on a quick lap. What about Ruben Pedreño? It's not him, it's Baena that's crossing the line. He stays P5 at the minute, not on a quick lap for him at the minute, so it didn't work out for him. Pedreño, though, he's not on a quick lap either. He's had to bail out of his lap. Laverty's on a slow lap too. John Evans, my tip for pole, not on a quick lap either. What about Thomas Ronhart? Take us through it, Lucas. Oh, he's bailed out. He's bailed out as well. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I think we've got Liam Parnell on a lap 1.15 up on his current lap. Not. He's going to have to gain quite a lot of time, but at the moment, Luke Smith, the two Alfa Romeo drivers, sitting pretty at the top, but does anyone have an answer? Ruben Pedreño down through the first sector. John Evans coming through the first sector split. He's also down. Also down for P5.
It's going to be really...
But Ronner with a good sector 1.830.
Yeah, so Liam Parnell sees the checkered flag. He is 8th quickest. It's not worked out for him. Pedreño now through the middle sector. We've got Alvaro Caraton coming to the end of a lap. We've almost missed him. Oh, it's all out of shape in the final chicane. He's surely blowing that one. It's not going to work out for Caraton. He'll cross the line now. He'll lose time. He only goes 8th quickest. It's not gone right well for him. Clay is only 10th on the grid. It's not worked out for him. Pedreño, though, is going to complete the lap. Oh, the back end on the Haas, sliding like crazy, and he's ruined the lap. It won't be good enough for him. He is in trouble. Laverty is improving, but he's bailed out. Now we wait on John Evans. My tip for pole. Can he snatch it right at the end? John Evans to the line. Can only go 3rd. He cannot deny him. But Thomas Ronhart is on a lap, but he's also bailed out. And that is it. It's over. It's an Alfa Romeo front row lockout, Lucas.
Oh, I couldn't predict anything for towards the end of that session. Honestly, that was... Oh, for 1 minute I thought one person was on a good lap, then the next minute it was someone else. What a hectic end. Very, very close up at the top end. But yeah, Canada bites hard. It's very hard to get the laps done, and that certainly showed itself in Q3.
There it is then, the top 10 from qualifying for round number 6 of the season. Luke Smith, pole position. Nicholas Longay alongside him on an Alfa Romeo lockout. The only two to get into the 1 minute 7s in the end. John Evans 3rd, Ruben Pedreño 4th, Iker Baena in 5th, with Thomas Ronhart 6th. It's Jack Laverty 7th. It is Alvaro Caraton in 8th, Liam Parnell 9th, and disappointment for Shanaka Clay, unable to register a time. He starts the race from P10. So disappointment for him, Lucas. What an end to the qualifying session. We probably did not expect that whatsoever. Two Alfa Romeos in the front row. It's Luke Smith on top. Well done to him.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, it was... Canada's a hard one to put it together, and I think... yeah, I mean, we only saw a tiny little bit of progression through Q1, Q2, Q3. I mean, it's not so much about getting a perfection lap. It's about putting a lap on the board, being confident. You know, it's not always about having the world record on to set the pole position round tracks like this. It's, you know, it's about putting a good lap on the board and, you know, sticking it. And yeah, that's what certainly, you know, helped Luke Smith and Nicholas Longay on their way to the top of the, well, to the front row of the grid, I guess. And yeah, credit to all these guys though, because obviously it's much easier though than it looks to invalidate laps, to make mistakes. People can be very, I mean, from my perspective as a driver, people can be very, very quick to judge. I mean, for example, we have, I believe Shanaka Clay didn't get a lap on the board, but people don't realise how easy it is to actually make whether these mistakes or have, you know, it's not easy to put a lap, never mind at the speed that these guys are going. Not easy to put it on the board. And, you know, it's a pressurised environment. And yeah, it's I think sometimes people just need to give credit where it's due to these guys. I mean, they've done a exceptional job, and yeah, it's going to be interesting now for a totally different mentality. It's time for the race.
Yeah, it's time for the race. Unfortunately, it does look like there's going to be a slight delay. A few drivers leaving the session, which suggests to me we're going to have a lobby reset. So bear with us, folks. We will get this race underway in a few moments' time. We'll get back into a fresh lobby, but I think the majority of the drivers have left this one, so I think we'll have to just bite the bullet and wait for another invite at the minute. But yeah, 35 laps then, Lucas, ahead of the drivers. It should be a really exciting race. For you personally, what would be the preferred tyre to start on? I mean, would you prefer to be on softs or would you prefer to be on mediums? Can the drivers outside the top 10 from 11th downwards pose a real threat in this race?
When I used to do league races around this track, I mean, the alternate strategy was actually very powerful as well. So, I don't know. I mean, track position's very, very crucial. Being in the top 10 will play, obviously, an advantage. But I don't think I would be too disheartened if I was in P11 because, you know, the rear tyres take an absolute pummeling around this track. It's 35 laps is a lot of laps around a track like this. A lot of demand from the mechanical grip of the car, and also not making mistakes as a driver. So it's going to be interesting to see, to see what strategy sort of plays out, and to see even if I think we might even see the appearance from a few people taking a bit of an adventurous strategy. We might even see the appearance of the hard tyre from people at the start of the race. I mean, that's how diverse the strategy can be at a track like this. I mean, the soft tyre will, if I'm to make a prediction, it's probably going to melt. The tyre wear per lap will probably be relatively high, and then it'll be interesting to see, you know, who manages it best. You know, there's also an element of, you know, saving the tyres as a driver. How is your setup configured for the race? Because, you know, you can have a great setup in qualifying rounds here, plenty of rotation, good on the front end, all these sort of things. But when you're in the race here, you really don't need most of these things. You need a stable balance. You need something that's kind on the tyres. You need to think differently and drive differently. So it's going to be interesting to see who's sort of geared themselves, or if they have geared themselves up more for that, or if they have you know, found a good mutual balance between qualifying and the race. Because something I always say if I do, you know, if I'm watching a league race or things, is, you know, don't 100% judge one thing for the next. It doesn't always, it's not always cross compatible. There's so many tiny details, and it's, I mean, when you're at a high level on this game, it is literally the tiniest details that will make the difference. I mean, you have so much talent on this grid, and it's going to be that, you know, that 0.1% of something being better than something else that will make the difference. And it's going to be exciting to see how it pans out, because Canada races throw up often, maybe even safety cars. Again, there's always a wall somewhere. We saw a few accidents in the qualifying, and especially when you have people going wheel to wheel. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, it'll be really exciting to see how it all pans out. I'm just really interested in what you're talking about there. It's about getting the setup right. You know, it's a happy medium, because you can't have it all in qualifying and then be nowhere in the race. That's something that Tom Martinez made work to perfection perfectly last year, because, you know, he didn't qualify well, and then the race was wet and he was flying in the intermediate conditions. You would never have expected, and that's no disrespect to Tom Martinez, he's a quick driver, but we don't expect him to be up there fighting the likes of Jake Benham. He breezed past him and took off, and that was just all about getting the balance right on strategy, or not on strategy, on setup, and it showed just how important that is, Lucas. It's so key, isn't it?
Yeah, 35 laps around a track like Canada is a lot of laps. I mean, it's a lot of times to get it wrong and a lot of times to get it right. I mean, the drivers are going to be tested. I mean, it's not the easiest track in the world to negotiate and manage in a race. It is a challenge. It is quite a headache. Strategically as well. I mean, you can often, I think the top 10 on the soft as well, they're going to find themselves maybe pushing the limit on those tyres in the first stint, and probably switching to hards, I would predict, for the next stint. But if I've remembered maybe correctly, the undercut round this track, it's pretty punchy, but so is a tyre advantage.
Okay.
So you've got, but you know, track position's important. You know, it's also with race engineers, with these drivers, you know, if they've got race engineers helping them out, telling them where they're going to slot back in, or you know, where the strategy's basically going to place them, or if they've got, you know, delta to play with on the strategy, that's key. So we're going to see that, you know, come into effect, because I mean, the more eyes you've got, sometimes the better. So it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of plays out.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's so much to consider, whether it be strategy, whether it be the weather, whether it be your setup. And yeah, as you say, undercuts are so powerful, but at the same time, the tyre advantage is powerful. And again, I suppose we always come back to this, like we spoke about the setups. It's finding that happy medium. You want to undercut a little bit, but you don't want to be left with no tyres at the end of the race. It's incredible, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, how long do you think we're going to get out of these soft tyres then? I mean, 35 laps, are we going to get 9? As many as that, or is that stretching it?
I'd be surprised to see so many people go to lap 9. I mean, the tyres, I think they're going to sort of suffer because the pace will drop very quickly. And then those who are outside the top 10 will be right on the back of that train. So then the priority for that top 10 on softs will then switch to pitting early and retaining that position. So yeah, and all it takes is one person to pull the trigger. You have one person down in P10, all of a sudden 9 cars are in the pits on the next lap. That's literally the knee-jerk reaction that you can often see in these races, because track position, I think there's 3 DRS zones around this track, but that's the thing, it's DRS trains. I mean, everyone's so close, everyone's at such a close level, so everyone's going to be following within that train. So you can undercut, have worse tyres, but no one can pass you because you're just in the train. So, and then I can't predict it. I mean, I've not done a race around Canada on this game on a league level, and I haven't watched one in quite a while, so I'm excited by the unknown. I mean, I don't know if we're going to have a dry race or not. I'm not too sure at the moment, but
it's going to be dry, because it says here in the menu dry, so it must have been dry going into it. So they've obviously, when they've done the re-lobby set, they've put it back to dry. But just another thing, Lucas, you usually at this point you're into the rig, you're getting yourself ready for the race, and there's a lot going through your mind. But see, in this situation, is this, as you say, you've not had the chance to race in a league on this game on Canada yet. So is this an opportunity for you to learn a few things as well?
Well, I mean, I'm always learning. Every day you're learning something. I mean, there's nobody in the world that can't learn something more. I mean, it's I've quite enjoyed also being able to look at things. I mean, I've obviously not been driving as much personally recently, because I physically don't even have a sim rig at the moment. But it's been very enjoyable and very just living a different perspective, and I mean, it's been really good fun to commentate alongside you this evening so far, and I dare say we've got the best part of it ahead of us with the 35 laps around Canada tonight. But it's really interesting, and you can always learn. There's no point in being an egotistical and be like, oh, I don't need to learn anything, I know everything about the game. You never know everything about something. You're always learning, and it's going to be interesting, as I believe we might be getting ourselves ready to get underway.
Yes, it looks like the lobby is just kick-starting, and we will be getting underway very, very shortly for round number 6 of the season. So without further ado, let's jump into it. It's round number 6 of the WOR season. It is the Canadian Grand Prix, and it's bound to be a cracker. Let's jump right in now. Here it is then, round 6 here in the St. Lawrence Seaway. It is the Canadian Grand Prix here in WOR. It's a street track, it's a challenge, and the drivers will need to be having their wits about them for this one. Season 8 race at Montreal was one of the most controversial races in WR history, with Flying Rosie and Ewan getting blacklisted for contact at turn 1. Let's hope none of the drivers get blacklisted tonight. The track distance, 4.3 kilometres, 2.7 miles, 14 turns, and as Lucas touched on earlier, 3 DRS zones around this wonderful circuit, around this man-made island. It should be a fantastic race. It's going to be dramatic. Previous winners, as we've touched on many times, Tom Martinez was the famous winner here last season at the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's take a look at some previous exciting moments. Martin marching to the podium. TRL Martin, one of the greats of the world of league racing, making his move on CRG Lutt, and down the inside he went into that final chicane. I'm sure we'll see plenty of overtaking here tonight. And this is what we touched on just moments ago. Tom Martinez passing Jake Benham, no other than Jake Benham. Here he goes, absolutely flying, the content creator, mixing it with one of the best up-and-coming esports drivers, making his move and going on to take the victory. Quite incredible stuff. But let's get into it then. It is round number 6 of the season in WOR. Nicholas Longy, the championship leader going into this. We're all set. We've had to wait a while with a lobby reset, but it's moments away, Lucas, from the start of the race, and it's bound to be a cracker, isn't it? Lucas, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. But yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting tonight. I'm just it's a lot to consider. So it's going to be really fun. I don't know. I'm just sort of like in the moment of like, I don't really know 100% what's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, we'll wait and see then. The formation lap about to get underway here in Montreal. It's going to be a fantastic Grand Prix. We'll see how it all pans out. The drivers on the grid now, and the formation lap will get underway. And just a reminder for everyone, they do have to still start the race on the tyres that they qualified on from Q2, the top 10. The advantage they will have, though, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Lucas. The advantage is that, unlike, because it's a new lobby, they will have fresh tyres. Obviously, they still need to start in the same compound, but they will be fresher now, and that gives some of them a little bit of an advantage, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone outside the top 10 is not going to be too happy about a lobby restart, because it always gives those in the top 10 that extra few percent that can be so crucial to, deciding a race result. I mean, every tiny bit counts, having a little bit of extra tyre wear, especially around a track like Canada where, often the rear tyre deck can be really dramatic. So it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of pans out through the first stint with those soft runners. And I believe now we have obviously the top 10 on the softs, but we do have one guy, Sam Corby, on those hard tyres down in P16. So it's going to be interesting, but we do have everyone else on the mediums outside the top 10. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be multiple strategies at play. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know where to pin my eyes for the start of this race. It's going to be quite feisty. I mean, Luke Smith, Nicholas Longier in the front row, John Evans, Pedreño. It could get feisty pretty quickly. Or will they play it safe? Will they prove me wrong? We will see.
Yep, well, here we go then. The driver's coming around that final corner now and about to line up on the grid for the start of the 6th race of this WOR PCF1 season. It's an Alfa Romeo front row lockout. Luke Smith lines up on pole position with Nicholas Longier alongside. John Evans in behind. We've got Pedreño and Baena together in 4th and 5th. Ronhard in 6th. We know he's quick. The likes of Shinaka Clay on the fringes of the top 10. Alvaro Canaton, he's no slouch either, starting from 8th. Let's see what he can do as we await all the cars to line up in the grid. Luke Smith then from pole position. He's got Nicholas Longier alongside him. It's a relatively short run to that first corner, so it's going to be vital for Longier to get that jump as we now wait for those 5 red lights. Every car in position, and now the lights will come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when they go out, we'll be racing in Montreal. Let's go here in Canada. It's a good getaway from Luke Smith. Longier slightly bogged down, and Luke Smith will be safe into that first corner. What is John Evans doing there? He's gone for a big dive bomb, and it's not worked out. He goes for a spin at the start of this race as Ronhard makes the trip across the chicane and gets a penalty. It's all gone plain sailing though for Alfa Romeo. Luke Smith leads from Nicholas Longier, and then the 2 Haas cars. But John Evans got it all wrong going into turn 1, didn't he, Lucas?
Oh, I mean, it didn't take long for chaos to unfold. John Evans getting pinched on the inside of turn 1. Unfortunate for him. Now back down in P20. He's miles behind. He's 12 seconds behind the pack. I do not know what happened 100% to him. And also Thomas Ronner having to take avoiding action, I think, on the transition into turn 2, cutting across the track and getting I believe a 3-second time penalty. Whether he'll be able to get that removed or not, that is to be seen. I believe that's Shinaka Clay making a move up the inside of Liam Parnell, not quite getting it sealed down for P8, but I mean, yeah, plenty of action on lap 1 so far.
Yeah, Shinaka Clay having a little look up the inside of Liam Parnell into the hairpin of all places. Not often you see a move there, but he couldn't quite manage it, and he stays where he is in 9th position as into the pits comes Ronhard for a pit stop. I wonder if he sustained some damage in that avoiding action, as here comes Shinaka Clay going for the move now on Liam Parnell into that first corner. He's got the inside line. He's got 7th place. Through he goes. Textbook stuff, Lucas.
Yeah, wing change for Thomas Ronner in the box, switching to the medium compound tyres. Yeah, if I was Thomas Ronner or John Evans, I will be begging for a safety car. But one thing you cannot do in these races is ever give up. And as I say that, John Evans sadly retires from the session. But nonetheless, we have, long way to go, only lap 2 of 35. And Sam Corby now down to P18, so last of the running order on those hard tyres, but crucially in that DRS train. But up at the front, we now have the top 8 on soft tyres. We've lost 2 of those runners, obviously with Thomas Ronner and John Evans, who were on the soft tyres, now out of that leading contention. So Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But Luke Smith, 7/10 in the lead at the moment.
Yeah, Luke Smith in control as Primoz Miklavsic just gives a little touch to Tom Martinez going through the hairpin there. Trying to get him to get on with it perhaps. Pick up the throttle, Tom. Come on, he's saying, as they now go down the back straight in towards that final chicane. Tom Martinez has had a really good start, run himself into the top 10, and Luke Smith sets a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix as they come across the line to begin the third lap here in Montreal. Is Miklavsic close enough for a move on Martinez? No, he's not. He stays put at the minute in 11th position, but I'm sure, Lucas, that will please some of these medium runners to have two of the soft runners jumping out the way early on and involved in contact.
Absolutely. I mean, two positions can make all the difference in how the alternate strategy plays out. And crucially for Joost Noordijk and Tom Martinez, they are both in the train of the leading soft runners, and their advantage will only build as the race goes on. I mean, the soft tyres will degrade faster than the mediums, which means the mediums will effectively be net quicker than those tyres as the race progresses more and more onwards. So the fact that they were able on lap 3, with DRS now being enabled, I believe, as well, the fact that they're in that train is definitely helpful for their strategy. So keep an eye on Joost Noordijk and also basically the entire train of medium runners that are going with them on that strategy.
Yeah, of course, but it's so key to be at the front of that medium train, isn't it? Because as you touched on pre-race, you don't want to be stuck in the middle of it towards the end of the race, because you just get in a DRS train and you want to get on the offensive. But if you're in the middle of the medium runner train at the end of the Grand Prix when you move to softs, you're not going to make much progress. It's only really the guys at the front of that train that are going to do it. So it's important to try and pick your moves and make some moves now. But at the minute, not looking good for those that are a bit further down in the order. But there's a long way to go. But at the minute, Joost Noordijk and Tom Martinez in a very strong position. So Tom Martinez must really like Canada. Victory last time out and a strong start here. So he will certainly be one to watch. But Thomas Harvey in 14th, he's one of the closest in the field to making a move at the minute. He and Jack West are quite close, as is Leroy Brown further down. But Ruben Pedreño in third is now starting to hunt down the two leaders and get to within 3.5 tenths. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Longe got pretty close on that on the run to the chicane on the last lap, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does this time round. Obviously, DRS with 3 detection zones and activation points on this lap. Half a second as the gap between the Alfa Romeo drivers, Nicholas Longe and Luke Smith, heading the field as we head towards the end of lap 4 with the famous final chicane to negotiate 2 tenths as they end the straight, but then that gap immediately opening up as they have to follow themselves through that high-speed chicane, which is hard enough at the best of time, never mind when you have to consider dirty air. But I don't quite think Longe is going to be too bothered at the moment, as actually, if we look at the ERS, Luke Smith 46%, Nicholas Longe 82%. So playing a game of chess there, or a bit of strategy with the ERS. Nicholas Longe more than happy to sit behind Luke Smith, not push any harder than he needs to, which helps him save the battery, save the tyres, and let the car ahead do all the hard work. And then when the time is right and when the strategy is critical, pounce, and that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, well, fascinating insight, because it is so strategic, isn't it? The ERS management. Just interestingly, we were touching on Joost Noordijk. He's dropped right off the back now of those guys. Oh,
time penalty.
And now he's got a time penalty. We spoke about that as well, didn't we? How easy it is to pick up a penalty. It's an unforgiving racetrack, and he is now dropped right off the tail of Parnell. But before we speak about that, let's see if Longe is going to consider a move on Luke Smith. You said it's all tactics, but it does look like this time round he's going to go for it. So Luke Smith defends the inside. Longe is going to breeze alongside him well before the braking zone, and he takes the lead on lap 5 out of 35. And into the chicane he goes, and through he goes ahead of Luke Smith and into the lead of this race. Is Luke Smith going to fight it back? No, he's not. So Longe up into the lead. And is that surprising for you as we lose Joost Noordijk from the race? That's a shame. Left the session, he's out of it. Will that bring out a safety car? That could be interesting if it does. Only yellow flags waving at the minute. No sign of it. I think he retired in the pits anyway, so there won't be a safety car for that. But are you slightly surprised that Longe went for the move in, Smith?
Not in that particular situation, because he was so close to the back of Luke Smith anyway, where if he didn't overtake him, it would end up being vulnerable to Ruben Pedreño behind. So it made a logical sense for Longe to make that move. And I mean, as I speak right now, we're starting to see penalties start flashing up left, right and centre. I've seen one for Jack Laverty, now there's one for Lewis Welch, and also for Joost Noordijk. I don't really understand what happened.
There's another one.
I mean, Jordan Poland now with a 3-second penalty, but with Joost Noordijk, I don't understand what happened, because all of a sudden I checked the delta and it's like 1.6 seconds behind Liam Parnell, and he was still running on the points, dived into the pit lane, and then immediately retired. So I don't understand. Maybe he picked up damage, maybe hit the wall, but I don't understand the part where he retired out from the race. So
Pit stop, very early stop from Nicholas Longue. Sorry to cut across you there. He's coming in very early, the end of lap 6. Is this around when you expected, Lucas?
It's pretty early, which is always medium tyres. Is that 2-stop?
Oh,
maybe
a 2-stop potentially for Nicholas Longue. So there you go. Lucas Blakely surprised. The expert in commentary tonight. Great to have you with us. Surprised, Longue has gone onto a set of medium tyres after just 6 laps. And does that indicate a 2-stop? Can you go 28 laps on mediums, or is that asking a lot? Is that taking the biscuit?
I mean, I don't know 100% what the tyres are like at this track, but I would imagine that is a long way, even on hard tyres, to stretch. So, I mean, I'd be very surprised if that's a one-stop strategy for Nicholas Longue, but we'll have to wait and see. But if it is a 2-stop, I can tell you one thing, he has got a lot of overtaking to do this evening. He has got so many cars to negotiate and pass if he wants to make this strategy work. And yeah, that all plays more into the hands of Tom Martinez, who is the lead. He's the lead medium runner. And actually, now, speaking of pitting, we have Luke Smith into the box.
Now, this is the question. What tyre will Luke Smith do? Will he also go medium, or is it a split strategy?
Medium for Shanaka and Luke Smith.
Yeah, mediums as well. So can they get to the end? That's the question. Or are they all opting for the 2-stop strategy? This is going to be very interesting. I suppose a reference is going to be how far the current medium runners can go on their tyres. Luke Smith makes his way out onto the track, as does Shanaka Clay. Is Longue ahead of Smith? Let's see into that first corner. He is. Longue retains the lead, or the net lead, ahead of Luke Smith as Shanaka Clay exits 2.3 behind.
Crucially for Luke Smith, he is in the DRS for Nicholas Longue, so he's basically remained where he was, but gained an extra life on 1 lap on tyres, which is, you know, that's worth everything in this business. It's literally, you know, the tiny advantages all add up. So you'd be pretty happy if you were Luke Smith at the moment. Shanaka Clay 2 seconds further drift behind of those early stoppers. Now on lap 8, we have only 5 cars left on the soft tyres. Everyone's just jumping off these tyres, like immediately. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Here we go, we've got almost 3 wide going into the final corner, and I was expecting some of them to pit, and that could have been a little bit dicey. None of them pitted in the end. Banea takes the lead, Caraton up to second, Pedreño drops to third as a result, as he was swarmed all over the back of both by Caraton and Baena, and they are now making up a Spanish 1-2-3 here at Montreal. And it's a Spanish siesta here, incredible. Baena leads, Caraton second, and Ruben Pedreño in third.
Longue setting the fastest lap, so certainly pushing on that brand new set of mediums. Now, could we see, with those top 5 on soft tyres, extending on those tyres, which at this point, they're going to start losing pace. I mean, we're probably going to see the gap to Tom Martinez start to creep down that little bit more. Those mediums will be in much better shape than those on the soft tyres, but equally, those soft runners are all in DRS of each other, so it's going to yo-yo a little bit. But, back to my point, all the soft runners going to go on hard tyres and do a 1-stop. I mean, it's going to be the more extreme version of the 1-stop, because they're going to have to pit quite early, and those on the mediums behind will probably have a good tyre delta towards the end of the race. But it's 5 cars, it's track position, it's going to be interesting heading towards the end of the lap and seeing how many people pit. And oh, we have a Red Bull.
Let's have a look then. Liam Parnell in. Let's see the tyre compound. Is it going to be medium tyre? That looks like medium yellow walled tyres coming out of the blankets, and indeed it is. Medium tyres on for Liam Parnell as well. So several runners then pitting early for mediums. I suppose lap 9's nowhere near as extreme as what we've seen from Nicholas Longue at the end of lap 6. But there you go, Parnell out onto the racetrack on a set of mediums as well.
Tom Martinez picking up a time penalty. I believe that's now 5 cars on the board with time penalties. This track bites hard. Sometimes it's really harsh, and sometimes you can get instant penalties from the game where it just gives you so many warnings, and when you only do 1 invalidation. So also something to keep in mind at this early phase in the race. But now 4 cars remaining. Are these mediums quite durable? Am I overthinking the strategy? Maybe it is a 1-stop and these mediums can go the distance, and Nicholas Longue was pitting very, very early on. But we can just never tell. But the pit lane at Canada is crucially very, very short, and the tyre delta is massive as Alvaro Carton takes the lead of the race.
Yep, through he goes, and with a Spanish change at the front, Canaton now leads, none of the top four, into the pits, Pedreño now all over the back of his teammate and fellow countryman, and he's going to go down the inside, the Haas cars going side by side. Is this going to be one for the swear jar for Gunter Steiner? Doesn't look like it, maybe it will be. They're banging wheels, the two Haas drivers. Oh, they might have to make a Drive to Survive episode about this as well, as they go side by side through turns 2 and 3. Bayonet is through, Pedreño is third, Gunter Steiner, well, he doesn't have to start swearing yet, it's just a change of position.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Netflix episode's been saved for lap 35 at the moment as the gap has opened up between P1 and P2. That fighting didn't help, that gap just went up, but they've been saved by the DRS, and all of a sudden there's 6 cars on the board with time penalties, so I mean, we're going to be having more people with penalties than without it in a minute, but anyway, theoretical leader of the race, Nicholas Longate, down in P13 as it stands with, I think, the top 12 yet to remain pitting. Now, surely some of these soft runners are going to think about pitting on this lap. I'll be amazed if I don't see a set of maybe even, I mean, if it's not hard tyres, then I'm going to have to imagine that it's a one-stop pretty easily and they're just diving off these soft tyres relatively early. Alvaro Carton not boxing, but I believe one of the Haas's did, and the other Red Bull.
Yep, so Laverty in, Bayonet in as well. What tyre going on these drivers? It looks like mediums for Laverty. It is mediums for Laverty, so perhaps it is comfortable enough to go to the end on a set of mediums. I mean, suppose they've taken the softs 11 laps, so maybe we shouldn't be too surprised if they get to the end of the race on mediums. It just makes it very interesting that Sam Corby chose a set of hards after all that, doesn't it, at the start of the race, but we'll have to wait and see. Nicholas Longy, let's pick him up now then, the theoretical leader, as you said, with Luke Smith right behind him as they try and negotiate the traffic. Now, this is something I wanted to ask you about. Do you approach drivers with a little bit more caution that you're not racing with when you've got someone you are racing with right behind you, Lucas? Because for me, I would never want to be caught on the outside of a driver that you're not racing against, because it could just open the door to your nearest rival, your actual rival, can't it?
You've just got to play the percentages. Don't make any moves that are going to be half-hearted or 50%. You've got to make it, make it clean, make it, guaranteed. Don't make any silly moves. Nicholas Longy at the moment not making any moves with Luke Smith right behind him, but it's going to be a very simple move for Nicholas down the straight as he gets the DRS on Lewis Welch, and it should be a pretty easy pass, and Luke Smith will probably go with him as well.
Yeah, let's see then. Nicholas Longy breezes through, and so does Luke Smith, as you said, and they move up into 10th and 11th place respectively, and the two Alfa Romeos following each other around and are setting some blistering pace out there at the minute. They're well clear of Shanaka Clay and the rest who pitted so much later, but as you touched on way back in qualifying, the undercut is one thing, but the difference in tyres with the delta, the tyre difference is extremely strong as well. So what do you think? Do you think the likes of, maybe not Shanaka because he pitted at the same time, but do you think the likes of Baena, Laverty, do you think they'll be able to reel these two in, or do you think there's already too big a gap?
I think once the fighting commences, it's all going to converge. I mean, it's quite common you see when all the fighting starts to kick off, and then everyone, I mean, as we get more penalties flying in the board every 2 seconds, I look at the top of the screen and it's just penalties. I mean, it's not a discredit to the drivers because I know exactly how hard it is to try and avoid penalties at this track. It's an absolute nightmare, and it just shows how difficult it can be around, trying to negotiate your way, pushing at racing speed. And we're only 13 laps in and we're already seeing quite a number of penalties. It just shows the challenge that this track presents to the drivers, and keeping it clean is of high value. And I think my limited knowledge of this track on F1 2021 has come into full effect, because I mean, we're on lap 14 and Alvaro Carton and Ruben Pedreño have yet to pit, so maybe Longy just pitted really early because the mediums are actually very, very, very durable, and it's not because he's going for a 2-stop, because I would have predicted that maybe it would have been a 2-stop, but yeah, again, my knowledge of Canada on this game isn't 100% as accurate as maybe as it would have been if it would have been a track in the sports season.
Yeah, I'm just watching Caraton there, and like you were speaking about earlier on, the traction zones out of here, you will see a lot of sliding, and Caraton certainly did that coming out of that first sector, as these soft tyres are surely now beginning to struggle. Martinez is now beginning to reel them in. He's now within DRS territory of these two. They cannot be far away now from a pit stop. They've gone so much longer into this race than Longy and Smith. Seven laps now, which is quite incredible. They're going to have such a tyre advantage towards the end of this race, but they're going to lose so many positions and time to Longy before the stop. Here we go now, let's see. They're both coming in, so finally Caraton and Pedreño end the stint of soft runners, and they will surely go to medium tyres. It was about time, wasn't it, Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, I checked the delta to the leader, and Longy was only 6 and a bit seconds behind those soft runners, Alvaro and Ruben, before they made their pit stop just right there. So, but the key thing is we're not even halfway through this race. There's a long way yet to run, and a lot of lap time yet to be made up. So it's going to be interesting to see them all converge.
I've just noticed that Luke Smith's got himself ahead of Nicholas Longy, so we must have missed that one. But Luke Smith, somewhere out there, has taken the theoretical lead of this Grand Prix. So Luke Smith is back in front of Longy. We saw Longy take the lead from him on lap 5, or around then, and now it's been switched back. So Luke Smith regaining the advantage, and Longy half a second back. So there's so much going on. We missed that. Luke Smith back into the theoretical lead.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a game of cat and mouse, and it's going to be very important as to who's in the lead and when, because if you're in the lead when you've caught the DRS train that they are literally just approaching of all the medium runners, then you would want to be Luke Smith right now, because he is currently ahead and about to catch a DRS train, which makes it much harder for the car behind to make a move. So it's going to be a bit of a game of cat and mouse, and if Longy is going to make a move, he needs to do it pretty soon, because they are catching the runners ahead of them. Yeah,
this is going to be really interesting. I mean, you said moments ago that sometimes for Luke Smith you don't want to be going half-hearted for moves, but at the same time there's a reverse to that. If you go aggressive, make some moves, it might put pressure on Longy to also make those moves, because if he doesn't, he could end up more than a second behind Luke Smith, and that can be extremely decisive, can't it? So it's going to be interesting to see how Smith approaches it.
Yeah, Longy's literally got maybe one opportunity to make this move. Maybe he doesn't have one at all. I mean, the gap between Luke Smith and the cars ahead, oh my god, it's now under a second at the DRS detection point. So Longy isn't going to get the chance to overtake Luke Smith now that they're in this train. I mean, Luke Smith immediately onto the back of, I believe, Leroy Brown. We'll see if the DRS opens as I predicted it has. Yes, it has. So Luke Smith now secured himself a safety net, at least for a few laps.
Yeah, so what do you think? Is it possible to go aggressive? Oh, he's coming in! Oh, it is a two-stop. There you go. It is a two-stop from Luke Smith. Wow. Who'd seen that coming? Certainly not me. Luke Smith then down the pit lane, and it will surely be another set of the medium tyre. Well, there you go. It is a two-stop for Luke Smith. Wow.
That just makes it all the more interesting, because, I mean, where was Luke Smith? He was like P8, right? So... yeah. That means that P8 was his legitimate position against everybody ahead of him, and he had maybe, 3 seconds to make up. So Luke Smith needs to make a 3-second undercut to get the theoretical lead of the race against Tom Martinez. But he's going to have older tyres towards the end of the race. So this is where the strategy really starts to unfold. I mean, just when you think it's going to be a one-stop, just when I think I've ran out of knowledge and I'm completely washed at knowing this game, it turns out that, yeah, maybe I made the right call in the first place. Or Luke Smith is making a different strategy call. We just do not know, but yeah, plenty of strategies at play here.
Yeah, well, he gets out of the traffic, so that is going to be interesting. Let's see how it works out. Is his teammate coming in? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So both Alfa Romeos going for the two-stop. They were both on the front row together.
Time penalty. Sorry to interrupt.
Shinaka gets a time penalty. That's going to be crucial as well. 3 seconds is oh so much when the field is this close, as we've seen in qualifying. So both Alfa Romeos then, who were on the front row together, haven't split the strategy. They've both gone for a two-stop. That's incredible. Let's see how it works out. They're now at the back of the field, 16th and 17th, but they're going to the checkered flag. They've got some serious overtaking to do. We thought they would have had the worst tyres at the end. Turns out they might have the best against the likes of Baena and Jack Laverty. Wow.
Luke Smith temporarily breaking that barrier to DRS to Nicholas Longy, but Nico has more DRS. Sorry, not DRS, ERS, and then he will get DRS. So those two need to work intelligently together, because they need to use those, fresh medium tyres to get to the end of the race, but also to jump those who are going on a one-stop, who will end up having better tyres. So, yeah, especially if Tom Martinez and co on those, the top 7 as it stands right now, on that alternate strategy, especially if they go to the softs. because if they go to the soft tyres, as we are now around just past the halfway mark of this Canadian Grand Prix here in WOR, it's going to be interesting. There's so much left to be run in this race. I have no idea. Just when I thought I didn't know what I was talking about with the strategy, it was completely blown open. And I mean, speaking of DRS, Nicholas Longay right on the back of Luke Smith already.
Yeah, he's all over the back of him. I was almost gonna cut across you for a moment there, but he decided against going for the move. But Luke Smith, yeah, still ahead of Longay at the minute. Certainly using up quite a bit of the battery there was Longay, down at 50% at the minute. How's his teammate looking? He's at 22%, so it's been the theme throughout the race, hasn't it, that Luke Smith has been using more of the battery than Nicholas Longay. Meanwhile, up at the front, Martinez still leads, but he'll be ruining that penalty as the top 7 now still going long in the medium tyres. They've got one strategy. Then you've got Shinaka Clay, Iker Bena and Jack Laverty and co all on a different strategy. They're all going to the end of the race, we think. But here we go. Let's see if Raklavsic is going to make a move on Martinez. No, he's not. As he gets closer and closer, will there be any pit stops this time by? No, it's far too soon, isn't it? They won't be going to the softs just yet, but this is really shaping up to get interesting. What about Shinaka Clay? He's coming in now. Okay, so Clay's also on the 2-stop then, and he pits after 11 laps on the medium, so he's pitted that little bit later than Longay and Smith.
Yeah, I think we've got, as Ruben Pedreño setting the fastest lap, we have Shinaka Clay on the 2-stop strategy. I think we've got Thomas Ronor on the 2-stops. No, maybe not Ronor, sorry. Liam Parnell on the 2-stop. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not quite sure 100% how it's going to pan out, because we've got Ruben Pedreño and the Alvaro Carreton, who were sort of the middlemen. They were like going halfway between each strategy on those soft tyres. Are they going to go to the end? Or are they going to... I mean... Technically, if Alvaro and Ruben Pedreño go to the end, they're ahead of Luke Smith and Nicholas Longay. They are ahead on track. So if they go to the end, they're just going to have to defend on the older tyres. So, I don't know. There's literally about 3 strategies going on right here. And just one thing I want to point out as well. Tom Martinez, 20% ERS. P2 Miklovic, and 63% ERS. So he's not really probably that bothered about overtaking. I mean, he's just going to sit there, save his tyres, save his energy. But as nobody makes a pit stop this lap, as we get back-to-back penalties for John Poland and Leroy Brown, the penalties just continue to pile in at the moment.
Here we're going to move then.
Alpine round!
Who's round?
I think Alpine Thomas Harvey went for a dive bomb up the inside of his teammate, went round. He's round at turn 1, identical to what happened to John Evans in lap 1. Oh, it was not ideal. I didn't quite catch 100% the action, but I just saw the Alpine go for a dive. Sorry to cut in front of you, Andy, there, but I just saw it. Thomas Harvey now getting a time penalty, probably Scott's tyres as well.
Yeah, it's not working out for him. Meanwhile, though, we are seeing some progress from Bena and Laverty. They've both got ahead of Leroy Brown, so they're now breaking through that DRS train. Liam Parnell has also got through. So Bena, Laverty and Parnell have made some moves. So this is my next question for you. There's so much intrigue about the strategy. We said Parnell might be going for the 2-stop. He's not pitted yet. Laverty and Bena, who pitted 2 laps earlier than that, will they be going for the 1? So are they theoretically also ahead of Pedreño and Carreton? It's so hard to say. Bena, Laverty, what do you think?
If they are, it's going to be a really big stretch. As Miklovic takes the lead of the race and dives straight into the pit lane. We have got... Oh, he's sped the pit lane! He's sped the pit lane on his way in! Oh, disaster! Oh, he just made the move and he was the first of his alternate strategy. Now going on to the softest, Thomas Harvey now gets a speeding penalty as well. So much is going on in this race. Thomas Harvey retiring from the session, presumably with damage from his contact at turn 1. But now a lot more work to do for Miklovic and Liam Parnell with a time penalty now. Oh, I can't keep track, Andy. It's absolute chaos.
More penalties than a penalty shootout at the minute. It's absolutely crazy as Iker Bena now lines up Jack West. Is he going to now move up into 3rd position? The problem he has, though, is because he's in that DRS train, Jack West also has DRS to Jeffrey Ritchie in front. But Bena at the minute is in essence, if he's going to the end, the net leader of the race. That is kind of how it looks at the minute. If he is going to the end, you said it will be a stretch. It probably will. Let's see what Bena can do. Can he get ahead of West? Laverty's in there too, though, and he's also going to be a major threat. So this is definitely the safest area of the track for Bena to make it then, as the Haas driver lines up Jack West. Is he going to be able to get through, though? No, he's not, because the car in front also has DRS, so it's going to be very tough for he and Laverty
Into the
to
pits
make
comes
any
Richie.
progress as Richie makes the stop, and now up towards the line, and across it they go. Let's watch from onboard Laverty as Bainea goes down the inside of West. Is he going to be through and into second place? He is through and into second place, and that is key for his race. And look at Laverty. Whoa, that was naughty. Into the back of West, put him off balance. Might even have damaged his own car there, Jack Laverty, as he edges his way through. That was desperation. He knew how important it was to get through. He didn't want Bainea to break that DRS as Laverty slides now, going through 5 and 6. That was incredible.
Yeah, absolute chaos unfolding now at the front of the pack of those who have not pitted. Now, one thing I want to point out, if you look at Miklovic, it is, I believe, a 6-second gap to Longy. So Longy, who is one of the leading runners on that sort of already done their final stop strategy, is ahead on older mediums. Actually, let me cut in. I've got Alvaro Carlton making move up the inside of Jack West on 8-lap old tyres, following his way through with Ruben Pedreño in 5th and 6th. I can't keep track of actually like whose strategy's doing what at this point, but with the soft tyres, he's now reduced that gap to probably about 5 point. I don't know. Otherwise, we've got a Ferrari into the pits as well. Jack West not speeding in the pits, but with actually no, he's one of the people that doesn't have a time penalty maybe.
So Tom Martinez, he's come into the pits now, so he finally ends that stint and goes on to the softs. Will he be ahead or behind McClassic? You would think behind. He will be, but now Iker Bainea takes the lead of this race, and we think he's going to the end of it. But now, though, the problem the front three have, it doesn't look like they're on the right strategy, because Pedreño on much fresher tyres, and well, not much fresher, but certainly fresher, and also Caraton on fresher tyres are now right with them, because they've been trying to fight their way through the traffic. So surely you would think Pedreño and Caraton have the strategic upper hand now over the front three.
They certainly have it on tyre advantage, but whether they can get through, whether these cars in front start to basically form a DRS blockade where they can't get past multiple cars, that's where the thorn in their side sort of comes from. But Liam Parnell not really hanging. Tom Martinez with another time penalty as well, but Liam Parnell only just in the DRS. Ruben Pedreño using all of his battery, going on board with the now up the inside, and that is Ruben Pedreño up into the podium positions. And I think as we're about to start lap 25 or 35, I think is a pretty safe bet maybe to say that the top now 7 are all going to the end of the race. Yep. I think the only people that aren't going to the end of the race are Jordan Poland and Sam Corby. That's it. I think that will be it. And maybe Lewis Welch on those softs, but sadly he's out of contention at the back. But I think that's really it. The strategies are now unfolding, and we have Primoz and P8. I'm sorry if I haven't said that 100% correctly, but he's only a few seconds behind Luke Smith and Nicholas Longy, but then just a couple of seconds behind Parnell, who is basically part of the lead 5 cars.
Yeah.
So, unbelievable.
It's so tight at the minute, but Pedreño really making moves, getting ahead of Parnell, as did Caraton, and now Laverty wants to get ahead of Bainea with 10 laps to go in this race. It's all coming together. This game of chess, this cat and mouse is now beginning to take shape, and the 2 Alfa Romeos, who remember have pitted twice, are now really starting to reel them in as well, as Jack Laverty thinks about a move on Iker Bainea for the lead of the Grand Prix. Here comes the Red Bull, it charges past the Haas, and Laverty takes the lead. We've had 18 different leaders today, and here's another one. Jack Laverty through and into the lead as Ruben Pedreño now potentially lining up a move with his teammate. He won't be close enough, neither will Caraton to be attacking him as they go into the first corner. But now here come Longy and Smith charging onto the back of them on their fresh tyres. But incredibly, despite pitting twice, their tyres are only 2 laps fresher than Pedreño and Caraton.
Absolutely crazy at the moment. I mean, fastest laps are now being set by all of those drivers who have just darted into the pits with those soft runners recently. So the field's all going to converge going towards the end of this race. I don't know where to look 100% at the moment, but I believe now, taking these penalties with a pinch of salt, because sometimes on the F1 game there is an issue where instant penalties are awarded for one singular incident. So for example, you have 1 invalidation and it counts as 3. So bearing in mind that these penalties might not be 100% set in stone, I think the drivers will try and play the race such as that every position counts. You know, if you're Ruben Pedreño right now, you may well be winning this race in reality, but you just do not know. You don't want to leave it 100% for chance. You don't want to take any risks, but you want to try and win it on track.
As Luke Smith now gets back ahead of Nicholas Longy, so they've continued to swap positions. It looks like to me that they're just going to drag each other along onto the tail of that group. That certainly looks like their plan, the two Alfa Romeo drivers. So they're now 2.1 off the back of it. Will they have the tyres? Pardon me, will they have the tyre advantage to get through on them? I'm not convinced they will, because Pedreño and Caraton only have 2 lap older tyres than these guys, despite the fact they've pitted twice. It's incredible, really. Will Miklavsic have the pace in his rubber when he gets there? He's 4 seconds off of Longy and Smith, but surely those softs will start to die.
I thought Miklavsic would have caught Longy maybe a bit quicker by this point. But there's still quite a few laps left to run. But as I say, that one lap 27 now. I mean, I think it's a safe bet to say that that is it for the pit stops in this race. Sam Corby now picking up a time penalty. I mean, I've lost track of penalties.
Here comes Caraton on Ruben Pedreño, and he breezes past him. So that's both drivers who were on the medium tyre at the start and or on 12 lap tyres. They both pitted at the same time. So Caraton now gets the position and moves into the top 3, and he will now be the first to attack the 2 on 15 lap old mediums of Benea and Laverty. So let's keep an eye on this then. Caraton moving himself into contention to compete for this victory. Oh, it's chopping and changing all the time as Luke Smith and Longy now move to within 1.5 seconds of the back of this train. And Shanaka Clay's got ahead of Miklavsic, who's just fading completely out of this race. As out of shape as Baena, and now Caraton is all over him through the middle sector. Are we going to see an unorthodox move? No, we're not. He can't quite make it through at the end of that first sector.
Yeah, it's all going to get pretty squeaky towards the end of this race. Luke Smith basically in DRS now, but both Alfa Romeos effectively have not. I mean, Nicholas Longy's now regened a little bit now, but Luke Smith has basically got no energy left. So both Alfa Romeos have been keeping an eye on them, have been using their battery with the DRS of each other to try and catch that field ahead. And also Shanaka Clay, he has got 2 lap fresher tyres than Longy, 3 lap fresher tyres than Luke Smith. So Shanaka, albeit in P8, has the best tyres of anybody on the mediums in that leading 8 cars, as Longy now takes the lead back ahead of Luke Smith. And a very, very crucial moment, because this lap, it is a high likelihood that they're going to get that top 5.
Hold on a minute, here comes Caraton, that's risky. Laverty's hit by Baena into turn 1. Baena has to cut the chicane, does Laverty, and rejoins, gets a penalty, and now has to concede positions, and Caraton seizes the opportunity and takes the lead on the fresher medium tyres. Baena touched Laverty went off the road, and Caraton said, thank you very much, I'll take the lead, and surely that makes him favourite now for the victory. Can he now break away, break the DRS, and leave Ruben Pedreño on the same strategy behind? It looks like that's his plan.
Laverty's got DRS to recover with, and whether he's got the red mist or not will remain to be seen. He'll be furious. He was pushed off the track. I didn't quite get the 100% angle on it, but I just saw the Red Bull darting off the track, then picking up a time penalty for good measure, albeit that could be removed potentially. And both races, side by side, Longy up ahead of Liam Parnell. Longy's in the fight for this one now.
VSC, we've got a VSC, I'm not too sure why, but the virtual safety car has been deployed. Now, will anyone go for softs? Because we know it's a short pit lane. Will anyone do that? I'm not too sure. Lucas, is that something that's possible, or is that just a crazy suggestion? Crazy.
Yeah, we're very late in the race. Everybody's made their final pit stops. Unless you've got absolutely nothing to lose, you wouldn't want to be darting out of track position now. But what it does do is reduce the amount of time that everyone can be catching. And this man right here, Alvaro Caraton, who is leading the race at the moment. But what is crucial is getting a restart off of this VSC absolutely nailed. You can break or lose the DRS very easily in this circumstance. The VSC also a good opportunity for drivers to cool their tyres and also regenerate some battery. Save fuel if you need it, save some tyres if you need it. It's a moment to sort of take a breath.
Oh! That's incredible. How's he done that? Longy, with what you would consider a really basic error, gets himself a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car and throws away his chances of victory with it. The championship leader in all sorts of problems here in the Canadian Grand Prix. A lapse of concentration or an error with the game, one or the other. He's out of contention for the victory now, and Caraton will love the sound of that. He will now be taking a massive chunk out of that championship lead that Nicholas Longuet has. Disaster for him as Caraton stretches his legs at the front.
Just so crazy. I mean, I would love to have seen Longuet's on board. I would love to have saw exactly how those events unfolded, which led to him getting a time penalty. Did he think he was clear? It's obviously on paper it sounds like such an easy thing to avoid, but I know myself how easy it is. You know, for all of a sudden the delta changes so quickly that he can't react to it, and then all of a sudden you are, you know, in the red, and that's when you get penalties. But yeah, unfortunate there for Nicholas Longuet, but there are still laps left to run. It's never over until the checkered flag is waved.
And Luke Smith has made a move on Liam Parnell. That was absolutely vital. And with Longuet having the penalty, he will see an opportunity to pick up a victory here, Luke Smith. That's surely what he'll be thinking about now. Well, let's see, but he's only got 4 laps to catch them and pass them, and he doesn't have that much fresher tyres. At the minute, Caraton looks like he's sitting pretty.
Side.
Oh, sorry, I'm missing it. Who is it? It's Longuet on Pedreño, is it? Yes, he's through.
Well, the side by side, he's not through yet. He's still got some more work to be done. ERS being deployed for Ruben Pedreño. Does Longuet have as much? Yes, he does. They're pretty equal, I think. Actually, no. Ruben Pedreño has more, but Longuet has got the move done. Pedreño deciding to slot in behind Longuet with the freshest tyres by quite a while of the cars ahead, or at least the 2 cars ahead of him. So, can we see Longuet get punchy?
Yeah, well, he's going to have to serve that penalty. I'm pretty sure it's it came up saying drive-through. Is it a drive-through for VSC?
No, I think it's a 5-second time penalty, maybe. We'll see.
My mistake then, if that is the case. So Nicholas Longuet then will set about passing these cars, but well, it's going to be all in vain with those penalties. But of course, Laverty and Baena both have penalties too. So at the minute, things looking good for Caraton as Baena gets out of shape. And now Longuet's all over him. He even gave him a little bit of a touch. And now he's going to pull alongside. Longuet, the championship leader, makes his move. And he's now up into 3rd position. And next up on his radar is Laverty. And then Caraton. He's got the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Longuet has a drive-through or not. I mean, I honestly, all I remember was seeing, you know, the penalty flash up. I'm not too sure. But, I mean, time shall tell. Going towards the end of the race, but oh man, I don't know how to call it. I mean, Longuet's on a charge, and you know, when you take the penalties out of consideration, or at least the penalties that stand at the moment. Oh, never mind. We're going side by side with the Haas's.
2 Haas cars going side by side. Longuet carries on. Oh, that was so close between Baena and Pedreño. They almost wiped each other out of the race. Down at the Wall of Champions, Longuet carries on. Luke Smith now in position.
Disqualified!
He's out of the race. I thought he would be. Round the outside tries Luke Smith. Can't quite do it. Pedreño now gets himself ahead of the disqualified Longuet, and somehow Pedreño stays ahead of Luke Smith after that. I thought it was a drive-through. I seen him go by for another lap, and I thought he's either going to get disqualified or I was wrong. I wasn't wrong. He's out of the race. He's disqualified. The championship leader is gone from contention. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I put my hand up. I did not read it correctly. I thought it was maybe a 5-second penalty, but it turns out that was a drive-through that Nicholas decided to ignore. Obviously, not going to score any points if he made that drive-through penalty. Or at least it was unlikely. So unfortunate for Nicholas. Unsure as to what exactly happened that led to him getting the penalty, but I'm quite sure we'll be able to see maybe after the race. But there are still, I mean, we've got 2 laps left, Andy. It's just all happening. We're running out of time.
We're running out of time, as is Luke Smith and Ruben Pedreño, without penalties if they want to do anything about Alvaro Caraton at the minute. Of course, Laverty and Baena both have penalties, so Caraton has got that rear buffer at the minute. Pedreño knows he needs to start doing something now. Can he do anything about Baena into the first corner? No, he can't. He stays where he is, and at the minute, it's looking good for Alvaro Caraton. That moment where Laverty collided with Baena at turn 1 looks like it's the key for Caraton to take the victory, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Alvaro's in the hot seat now. I mean, all of the major challengers with tyre advantages have sort of fallen by the wayside, or have multiple cars in between, you know, himself and, you know, those trying to take the lead off him. It's looking all right. I don't want to jinx it. I'm not going to do a commentator's curse on my first ever commentary, but Alvaro has managed it quite well so far.
Yeah, well, Jack Laverty does have 8 seconds, so of course he got 5.
Dive bomb, dive bomb.
Oh, what we're seeing is Luke Smith going for the move, and he's got it done on Pedreño. So that's another move, and Shanaka Clay trying to follow through on his 14-lap old medium tires. Incredibly, they go side by side down the straight. Shanaka Clay will maybe pick up a bit of a slipstream here. Luke Smith offers it to Ruben Pedreño because he knows that Clay's the bigger threat on the fresher tires. Clay trying to go down the inside. That's risky. Side by side, forced off the track. Ruben Pedreño, it's only one line through there. It was ruthless from Shanaka Clay, and he's into the top 5. So Laverty's still in second, but the problem is he does have 8 seconds. 5 will be removed for the contact with Benea into turn 1, but he did get another 3-second time penalty, so he's not a threat to Canaton at the minute. Canaton looking good as we start the final lap of the race.
Oh, I can't believe we're on the final lap. It's all gone so quickly. All of a sudden we're on lap 35. What an incredible race with so many strategies unfolding. But sorry, it is Alvaro Caraton with an incredible one-stop strategy, extending those soft tyres. I think it was like 15 laps, Andy. I mean, he just kept going and going, himself and Ruben Pedreño. And here he is, coming into the hairpin on the last lap, lap 35 of this race, here in Canada for WOR, and he's on his way to victory.
He sure is. Alvaro Caraton had the fuel issues in Zandvoort last week. It looked like it was a certain victory then. It just didn't quite work out. Barry Burman reeled him in and overtook and passed him for the victory. He's going to get things right here though in Montreal. Everyone went for so many weird and wacky strategies, but in the end, it was the simple softs to mediums that was the way forward. Alvaro Caraton crosses the line and wins here in round 6 in Montreal. A great win for him as the penalties sort themselves out. It's Luke Smith second, Ruben Pedreño third, Iker Bena is 4th, with Shanaka Clay 5th. Jack Laverty drops to 6th, but he'll surely gain some of that back with the 5 seconds. Parnell, Ritchie, McClavsic and Tom Martinez in the points in P10 after his famous win last year. But all the plaudits go to Alvaro Caraton. So many different strategies, Lucas, but in the end, it was the simple one that was the way forward.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible race! So many strategies. I mean, when you look down when you look at the leaderboard, the amount of different tyre compounds and ages. Like, look at the difference: 21 laps, 19, 21, 24, 16, 24, 26, 13, 14, 12. It just changes and changes. So much variety. Different number of pit stops as well. Not often you see that on an F1 league race, when you often just have the typical 1 stop, but 2 stops in effect here in Canada. What a race! What a bunch of collective strategies that went on, but it was Alvaro Caraton that prevailed.
Yeah, there was so much variation in the strategy. In the end, it was a 2-stop runner that finished second, just behind Alvaro Caraton. So in the end, it shows that all these strategies are relatively close in terms of which one is the quickest. And that's why we've seen such a split. No, the drivers just couldn't decide what the quickest way to go was. And in the end, Caraton made it work. He made it work. He extended the stint on the soft, went to the mediums, and it prevailed to be the best. And he has taken the victory here in Montreal. A fantastic win for him on a day where the championship leader, Nicholas Longy, picks up no points at all. Caraton begins to reel him in. It's the Williams man taking the victory ahead of Luke Smith in second. What a race. Ruben Pedreño coming home in third. 3 Spaniards in the top 4 places. What a race. Caraton the winner in 42 minutes and 10 seconds ahead of Luke Smith, Ruben Pedreño and Iker Bena. Shanaka Clay qualified 10th. He wouldn't have been happy with that, but he recovered well to P5. Jack Laverty with a strong showing coming home in 6th ahead of Liam Parnell in 7th. Jeffrey Ritchie was 8th and McClavsic was 9th, and Tom Martinez rounded out the top 10. Look at the number of penalties. It's quite incredible when we sort all this out. Is Leroy Brown 11th, Thomas Ronhard in 12th, Sam Corby, Jordan Poland, Louis Welsh, then the bottom 5. Jack West was a lap down, Thomas Harvey, Joe Snordyke, John Evans and Nicholas Longy either retiring or, in Longy's case, being disqualified. What a crazy race that was. So many different strategies at play, Lucas. And in the end, Caraton got the job done. I just wasn't sure what way it was going to pan out. You weren't sure either, despite your expertise. We had no idea. But in the end, Caraton made it work.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I feel really bad for the stewards after this race. They have got a lot of things to probably look at, whether it be track limits or incidents or unfair penalties being awarded. It's going to be a busy one for them. But, yeah, I mean, as you say, so many strategies and just... I mean, I doubted what I knew in points in that race. I just thought, you know, I thought the tyre wear was maybe higher than it was. But then, yeah, I mean, the 1-stop ended up being what won the race. But then again, as you say, the 2-stop was right there as well. So, it's hard. In a situation like that, it's pretty hard to call which way it's going to go, what way it's going to swing. And yeah, I mean, I could not call it all the way through. It was just absolute madness.
Yeah, what's incredible about it, Lucas, is we said you're always learning, and you are always learning. But you know something? I don't think you've learned what the quickest strategy is from that. Have you? I don't think I have.
No, because what's quickest on a practice session is not often what's quickest in an actual race. You know, you can do the numbers, you can do the practice, you can see what has the best overall race time, but if that doesn't slot into the way a race will pan out with, you know, the strategy, the track position, the type of cars you're going to be behind, how old the tires are going to be, tiny details, and you know, it's not always easy to predict that. Half the time, maybe you can't predict that. But when you get it right, it is you know, highly rewarding. And I mean, when I saw Nicholas Longe diving into the pits, I believe it was like what, maybe lap 7 or something like that. It was something lap 6, even earlier. So when I saw that, I was like, 2 stop maybe. But again, what maybe Longe could have done was pit really early on the softs and then just keep the track position but go long on the mediums. I didn't actually. I mean, Canada wasn't one of the tracks I raced in F1 Esports. I haven't actually properly done this track since the previous year's game. But obviously I have driven it, I do know the track. But when it comes to these details on the tyre wear per lap, the strategy, you know, I was a little bit blind coming into this, but I think that's what made it all a bit more exciting, because we had so many strategies. Like, there was at least 3 strategies that were fully in function during that race, maybe even more sub-strategies within those.
And the funny thing is, we're still blind because there's that many strategies at play. We don't know what one's quickest, because let's be honest, Nicholas Longe, without that drive-through penalty which led to disqualification, he could have won the race. He was looking very strong, wasn't he? He could potentially have challenged Caraton. It's all ifs and buts, but he had a chance to win it, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be pretty annoyed with what happened. I mean, the thing is I don't want to call it too presumptuously, because obviously we are sitting here in the commentary box, we are looking at it from an outside perspective. But when you're, you know, if you're Nicholas Longe, for all you know, you could have had a green delta, it might have been fine, and then all of a sudden he's getting a penalty and he's unsure why. I mean, you never know. It's just, you don't want to fire judgment too quickly. So yeah, unfortunate for him though. He was driving a good solid sort of recovery back up to the front of the field, making some moves, making some dive bombs, and yeah, sort of, as you said, ifs and buts as to how that would have maybe panned out for him. And yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. The one thing I am surprised maybe with, Andy, is how the soft tyres, or the medium to softs, I never really saw the expected charge, the push from those going on the mediums to softs. It wasn't as aggressive as maybe you would have expected. However, that can often be the expectation on that strategy. What can often happen is I think this is something maybe people don't consider as too much or enough when either driving or watching these races, but it's the tire temperatures. You know, because the softer down that range that you go, the more thermal problems you'll have with the tires. And for example, this is a very traction limited, rear limited circuit, as I've mentioned earlier in the stream. So, you know, you might be on the fresher, grippier tires, but if you're on the limit of the temperature on that tire, you're not going to get the peak grip, and you basically hit a ceiling where, you know, the tires, instead of being this much better than a medium tire that's operating at an actual, you know, within the temperature, it's actually only this much better, which makes it, you're not gaining that same amount because you're limited by the thermal temperatures. That's happened to me in France, for example, where there's a lot of it's a very different type of thermal issue you have there. It's very much on the carcass of the tire, because the sort of carcass temperature, because it's very long and loaded. It puts a lot of energy in the tire. But a track like Canada, you'll probably get a lot of surface temperature because it's all about traction and a lot of friction on the surface, and that will in turn then bring the carcass up as well. So all these sort of details will add into it, and I mean, maybe that's what happened to those on the soft tires, coupled with the fact that the softs go off quite quickly. So yeah, a lot of things to consider and the way this race panned out. And yeah, I mean, we're still sitting here discussing, trying to think, how did this strategy work, and why did this not work? But it ended up the way it ended up. So yeah.
Yeah, incredible. There's so much to it. I mean, that again, that's not something I consider. The thermal, the thermal issues you have. Oh, I was just about to invite Caraton in and he disappeared. No, I was about to add him into the commentary box and he disappeared. Oh, I don't believe it. Ah, that's a gutter. Oh, has he gone back in? No, he's not. Ah, I don't believe it. Ah, no way. That's a shame. He was just sitting there waiting to be interviewed. I was going to drag him in, but he's just disappeared. Oh, what I can say though is Luke Smith has popped in, so we can get him in. So let's have a word with Luke Smith. Luke, well, I don't know where to start because there was so many strategies at play. We've been speaking to Lucas Blakely, who's been great to have him commentating alongside me tonight, giving me so much insight, and even he at times wasn't sure what strategy was at play, what was the best way to go. But I see you finished second, you went for the two-stop and almost made it work to get that victory, but just also close, but couldn't quite pull it off. It was a great race for you though.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, with the strategy, it was quite an interesting one because what me and Nicholas had found out in practice is that with the drop off of the softs when you pitted from about lap 9, like it was quite substantial, so you'd get quite a big undercut, and then especially with the dead mediums at the end, and then still having fresh mediums, like we found out that you'd actually be able to catch up almost comfortably. But I think it's just the trains. That really helped Alvaro, Ruben, and I think it was Iker to take their softs longer, and also just to keep a better pace for the second stint as well. So yeah, it was definitely quite a strategical headache that we had today. But yeah, still P2, best result in Tier 1, so not complaining.
Yeah, it was an incredible race. So much going on. I mean, we just lost with all these strategies. We've been discussing it since the race ended and throughout the Grand Prix. So in the end, that's what happened then. You two did a little bit of research. You thought, okay, let's try the two-stop. But as Lucas has just been telling me there, I suppose you can do all the practice, but until you get yourself into a certain race scenario, there's no guarantee it's going to work. And as you say, it was as a result of all those trains that it made it difficult to complete the job. Is that what it was then? Is that just basically all it was?
I'd say so, yes. But also that with the lobby restart that we had, I don't think we quite counted in the fact that the soft pace would still be good after those extra couple of laps, because with qualifying WOR as well, the soft dropped off like quite badly after around 8 or 9 laps. But they were able to keep going just for 1 or 2 extra laps, which really made the difference, it would seem, because they didn't have any issues with tyre wear. You'd also have noticed that as soon as me and Nicholas caught up to that big train of medium runners, we felt like we had to pit. The thing is with that, with our strategy though, in our practice, we'd box lap 20 rather than 16 and 17 to test out how powerful the mediums or the fresh mediums would be. So the issue there was that our advantage was effectively just cut short. So yeah, it caused some issues with traffic, like I said, but overall, it is what it is.
Yeah, incredible, man. Absolutely incredible. The amount of research that goes in and all the thought process through all these strategies. But P2, as you say, you're very happy with that. Your best result now in Tier 1. You're getting ever closer to that victory, aren't you? I mean, you almost got one at Monaco and PSGL. You had it ripped away from you by an unfortunate pit exit. Surely it's going to come soon.
Me.
It's sorry. But it's going to come soon, isn't it? It's looking that way. It's inevitable.
Yeah, hopefully. With this amount of effort that I've been putting in to try and actually get to this point, it's quite insane. Obviously, the end goal is to be racing people like Alvaro, Lucas, Nico, etc. in esports, but you got to continue that grind. So yeah, I mean, hopefully with time that will obviously come. So if I just keep up this kind of momentum, then you should be seeing me P1 in one of those races, hopefully fairly soon.
Yeah, well, congrats on that, P2. Almost got the victory today. Wasn't quite to be. Congrats on that. Lucas, you're usually the man answering questions. Have you got to ask any yourself towards Luke Smith after that?
Yeah, well, first of all, congrats on the podium. It was a very solid and thought-out drive. It was obviously very difficult to, as you say, negotiate the traffic as well. I think that was maybe as you say, the key factor going into that sort of second phase of the race after you made the very early pit stops. I mean, my knowledge of Canada's pretty limited on this game in terms of sort of like the strategy side in a league race, but I was very surprised to see yourself and Nico pit so early, but you've also worked very well together, so yeah, talk us through sort of that element of it.
Well, firstly, our plan was after qualifying. Obviously, my plan personally was to give Nico as much help as I could because obviously he's in a championship fight. So it's probably better if we work together and let him take the victory if we were 1-2. So yeah, we kind of wanted to work together to maximize our result as well, especially after we realized that the two-stop wasn't really the way to go, and that it would be a lot harder to win it after the trains. But yeah, I think it was primarily just to kind of work together to maximize our result, but also for Nico as well, in terms of his championship result, because what was he like? He nearly had a race win as an advantage, so we wanted to try and extend that and just continue that kind of momentum for Nico. Obviously, with that drive-through and then later disqualification, it amounted to nothing, unfortunately, but still that was the kind of plan, and yeah, still managed to salvage 18 points for the team at the end of it. So yeah, it is what it is, as I said.
Okay, well, congratulations on that, P2. Great job, Luke Smith. I'm sure that victory will come for you very, very soon. But let's talk to Alvaro Caraton now, our winner of this Grand Prix here in Canada. Almost got the victory last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, back in Zandvoort. But just quickly on that, was it fuel issues last week, Alvaro, that caused the issue? Because you really dropped off in that race.
Yeah, good evening. I wanted to say that it wasn't the tires, because I hear you guys saying since lap 18 or something that I was suffering for tires, and I actually didn't. I mean, tires were good, but I ran out of fuel in lap 19. I was on negative actually, so I had to save fuel like an animal, and that's why I couldn't manage to win. But yeah, finally here, P1 in a track that I actually hate, and I didn't practice at all. I jumped in the sim 3 hours ago, and okay, let's practice a bit, and yeah, really happy.
Yeah, you must be absolutely delighted. I mean, we were just speaking to Luke Smith about the various strategies at play. In the end, it ended up being the kind of normal strategy, I suppose, that ended up working out for you. You just went a little bit longer on the soft tyres and then made sure that you had plenty of life in the mediums going into that final part of the race. I mean, did a two-stop or anything else ever cross your mind, or were you always focused on that strategy?
To be honest, on cleaner, one stop and two stops were really similar. It was just depending on how you deal with the traffic, because when I saw Longet and Luke Smith pitting that early, I thought they were gonna catch the train, and that's what happened. So they lost time, and I decided to wait a bit longer so I could avoid that train and go until the end with mediums.
Okay, well there you go. It is so interesting to see all these strategies at play, but you made it work. Congratulations, Alvaro. The championship now then, Longuet with that disaster, having the disqualification in the end, that brings you right back into play. No points for him, 25 in the bag for you. You must be delighted about that as well. It really closes things up, doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know what happened when the BSC came in, because it was kind of bad. Like, I couldn't see some things in the screen that I normally can watch, but yeah, luckily Longet had that drive-through. Otherwise, he could have been fighting for P1, and he had better tires. So yeah, finally we can win and lead the championship.
Yeah, and I've got to say, were you fearing the worst if Longuet got to the end? Do you think he probably would have been your biggest threat?
Yeah, I was watching him and controlling him all the time. That's why I wanted to overtake Baena and these guys as quick as possible, because I knew he was closing the gap, and I thought he could win. So yeah, thankfully the BSC made me a bit of a favor, you know. So yeah, that's it.
Congratulations on the victory. Lucas, have you got any questions for the winner, Alvaro Caraton?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm usually used to racing this guy, so it's always a bit of a different perspective. Yeah, I know it is weird, but no. Well, first of all, GG man, on taking the dub, but it was very well. I mean, very well executed. I've nothing really much more to add. I mean, you made the moves exactly when you needed, really. I mean, if you'd maybe went one lap later, then you don't get past 2 cars, and then as you say, Nico catches up because he was on a bit of a charge towards the end. So yeah, GG.
Thanks for your work, man. Hopefully we can see you back racing. Cause
Yeah,
we miss you.
yeah. I want to get back. Don't worry. I mean, once I get a rig, yeah, I can then start to plan getting racing. I do miss it a
Exactly.
little bit. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations on the victory, Alvaro Caraton. You're right back into the championship battle now, and hopefully you can continue that form going forward to the rest of the season. It's been great to talk to you. Well done in that victory.
Thanks. We'll try. See you guys.
See you
Ciao,
later.
ciao.
Now there was Alvaro Caraton giving us his thoughts, and Luke Smith as well giving us his thoughts after that race. And I've done what I usually do. I always do this. I forget to full screen the Discord again. There we go. That's it sorted. I do that all the time, so that's the usual. But yes, anyway, congratulations to those two. Great results, executed their respective strategies well, and in the end, Alvaro Caraton takes the victory. But Lucas, I've got to ask you, have you enjoyed your time in the commentary box? It's a totally different perspective, isn't it? Is it as you expected it to be?
I don't really know what expectation I had, to be honest. I just sort of thought, I mean, I was very lucky to have be called up to, or asked, by WR very politely today. There's a comment. If you want to do commentary, I was like, yeah, sure. I just made sure I had enough, the time, and yeah, it was good fun. Thanks very much to WR and for having me, and it was a pleasure to commentate alongside yourself. Obviously, we've we've known known each other in the community for such a, oh god, I'm gonna feel old now, but like a while now. So yeah, it's pretty cool to sit here and do some commentary, something different. I definitely enjoyed it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy driving more, but this has been very, very good fun. So yeah, I do appreciate everyone having me, and I hope I wasn't too bad a sidekick for for your stuff.
You're brilliant, mate. You gave us a lot of insight. Like some things that we as commentators usually wouldn't think about or know about. Like such as like the thermal tires and things like that with the the temperature and how that can really affect your closing part of the race on soft tires and things like that. It was great to get that kind of insight. But I've just got one more question to ask you. What gave you the urge to do commentary? What was it that made you think that you could enjoy that, you could get involved in that? What was it?
To be honest, it's just been open-minded. I mean, obviously I've done, I have my own, my streaming, I do stuff like that. So, in a sense, that's maybe like sort of been the like sort of the bedrock for it, I guess. I don't know, I've never been like closed off to the idea of doing something. Obviously I will always be a driver and racer at heart and first, but you just never know how life's gonna go. I mean, I wanted to give this a go at least. I mean, I'm not gonna be racing sadly at the moment, so I thought, you know what, it would be I've got an opportunity to jump in, so yeah, sure, why not? It'd be good fun. So yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. But as for what made me want to do it, I don't know, just being open-minded, and because you never know. I mean, Martin Brundle never thought he'd be a commentator. Not many people actually do, but like, I certainly obviously want to be a race driver. But yeah, just a great experience overall, and I dare say it won't be the last time I make a sneaky appearance in a commentary at some point, and whenever in the future, I don't know. This could be the only commentary I ever do, for all I know. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great to have you. It's been a real pleasure having you share your expertise in the commentary box. It's been brilliant, and hopefully we will see you again. It won't be the last time you do a commentary, but I've got to say a big thanks to all of viewers for tuning in today. It's been another cracking race here at Montreal. If you liked what you saw and you're new to the channel, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to be sure to tune in for all the WOR action throughout the season. It's really starting to hot up now. We're now 6 races in to this exciting season here NPC. But that's all from myself, Ginger Andy, and from Lucas Blakely. I'll be back next week for another Grand Prix. Hopefully, well, we'll see if Danfield's back. I'm sure he will be. I'm sure he'll be fighting fit come next week. But that's all from us. It's been a pleasure to bring you the Canadian Grand Prix. Congratulations to Alvaro Carreton. He wins and moves himself right back into the championship fight. Goodbye.
On his debut, Jarno Opmeer wins at Spa.
It's Martinez in Montreal. David beats Goliath.
It's a true underdog story. John Evans wins at Mexico.
And it's Super Sam Corby who takes the PlayStation Championship.
FRA Ron takes his first WOR Championship. He is your Xbox champion.
And Jake Benham is a two-time WOR champion.
Uppbeat around the outside operated line shadow. His contact again, Robert is around.
Bethany, surely is going to win here at Abu Dhabi. He does.
16 races across 5 continents. From Brazil to Belgium and Bahrain to Britain. Soon this story starts. Across 3 platforms, hundreds will begin the quest. The quest in search of glory and the right to be called a WOR champion. Lights out, and we're racing in Season 12.